Defense made a motion for a mistrial. Prosecutor was up to some fuckery. Potentially damaging evidence, no basis for it. The judge specifically said, do not ask that question. Do not use that as evidence. She walked right down the path and asked the question. It may be over on Tuesday morning. Batman Bruce Wayne bitch snitch. Gerald Brooks, your constitution does not apply to me because I'm a sovereign citizen, a traveler on the land, I'm the Moorish Empire or whatever, bitch snitch. Because they're so fucking absurd. If you want to be a sovereign citizen, just do yourself a favor first. Go to YouTube here and just get every sovereign citizen that's ever been before. Find me one that won. God dang, you're right. Don't go down this. It's not the path. Don't have time for stupidity. Some clever dick on the internet didn't find the great loophole in all of the world's law. Bitch snitch. God dang, you're right. God dang, you're right. Traveler on the land. God dang, you're right. Moorish Empire. Traveler on the land. Bitch snitch. Moorish Empire. God dang, you're right. Traveler on the land. Bitch snitch. The late evening U.S. people. Hey, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, wherever you are, whoever you are, whatever you're doing, whoever you're doing it with, and all that other stuff. I'm just glad you're doing it here with me, Legal Vices. Real quickly, the Sarah Boone jury selection is still going, expected to go for another day or two. In the meantime, we're going to be covering this case, and when Sarah Boone, the jury gets seated and they start streaming, we'll go back to that, and then we'll come back to this. This is a case that I wanted to follow and watch. It got a bit heavy right at the beginning, and I said, I'll look at this again when it goes to trial, and it just unfortunately happens to go to trial the same exact time Sarah Boone is going to trial. But we'll watch the first part here today, probably tomorrow too, and we'll just see how far we get before Sarah Boone start streaming, and then we'll come back to this. But this is a heavy case, people. This is a heavy deal. LEILANI Simon here. Real quickly, she has been charged with 19 crimes, including malice murder, felony murder, concealing the death of another, and making false statements in the death of her son, Quentin Simon. He's 20 months old, I believe. Yeah, the really all we need to know out of the gate is 20-month-old son. Allegedly, she got high on some drugs, murdered her son, threw his body in a landfill, and lied about it. And we watched about a year or so ago, maybe a little more than that. We watched a video with her mother sticking up for her and things. It was a rough video, but I haven't seen anything since that video she did with her mother talking about this. But basically 4 days, the entire town is digging through places. They were going piece by piece through the landfill. They finally found the child's body. It's just terrible. And now she's on trial. 19 charges surrounding the death of her child. And yeah, with that, I'll put up a... well, I won't put it up. I'll just say, look, innocent until proven guilty. We're going to see what evidence comes down. Try to withhold your judgment, see what the jury sees, and try to come up with what you believe is a fair and reasonable decision based on the evidence presented.
Yeah, we've got there won't be any bingo or anything like this. Is just way too heavy of a case for something silly like that. But we do have our like and subscribe poll set up. We got 258 people here right now and 120 likes. So 130 if you need to get over there and hit that like button. Our like and subscribe poll today is just a simple question. How many of you are familiar with this case? So after you hit the like button, after you hit the subscribe button, come on over here and take the poll and answer the question. How many of you are familiar with this case? Your choices are intimately familiar. I've heard a thing or two, sounds vaguely familiar, and never heard anything about it. And 57% of you so far have said you've never heard anything about it. It's a heavy case. That's all I got to say. I know I've said that a few times, but it has the makings for a darn heavy case. Now, we're going to start right at the beginning with the opening statements by the prosecution. I skipped about 40 minutes of the jury coming in, the judge explaining what their duties as jurors are and giving them their admonitions not to talk to anybody, anything like that. She didn't read the charges. That I guess will happen at the end. But one interesting thing that I'll just mention without actually showing is the defendant was crying when the jury came in the room. Not a great way to start your case. She was weeping and wiping tears from her eyes as the jury was coming into the room. So off to a less than stellar start, I would imagine, for the defendant. And with that, the last thing we need to talk about is this. Day 34 of the emotional support potato pig dog cam. And there's ever a day, ever a trial where we need the emotional support potato pig dogs, it's this one. So if we unlock it, we unlock it. If we get to day 35, that is all on you, people. It's up to you. If we get to that point, we don't grift for super chats or anything like that, but we graciously and gratefully accept them as they come in, and we put that towards unleashing the emotional support potato pig dog cam at the 100 mark, whether it's super chats, gifted memberships, purchase memberships, whatnot. Just throwing that out there for you to do with as you see. Please, we'll run this like we do a normal trial. And for those of you that are just kind of watching this while we wait for the Sarah Boone trial to start, this will give you an idea of how we watch the trials over here on my channel. We try not to talk over the judge, the court, the witnesses too much. We keep that to a minimum. We'll flash up the super chats on the screen, and then when there's a natural break in the proceedings, we'll read them. Or when there's a sidebar, something like that, we'll read whatever super chats have come up, and I'll put up the occasional comment that I see scrolling on by. And to help us down that road towards the emotional support potato pig dog cam fresh out of the gate is a very, very generous and very, very wonderful 5 Legal Vices gifted memberships from Kathy Michael. Thank you so much for that. Gifted 5 Legal Vices memberships. And if you happen to be, sounds like the dog is digging into something. Great. If you happen to be Luke C., Ginger with a Soul, Brandon Farron, Liz Gatehouse, or Debbie J., you got a gifted membership from Kathy Michael. So let's all give Kathy a super special thanks and jump straight into this, shall we? Adar the Wholesome, also member for 12 months. There's a 1-year membership, number 1 on LawTube right here. Legal Vices, boom, for life. On an unrelated note, what on God's green flat earth is this trial? No idea about this. Well, I just gave you a little bit of a rundown, and the prosecution is going to lay it out for you right here, right now. And I'm going to go find out what the dog is doing as soon as I bring this up. Let's see. And let's go.
So at this time, I will turn first to the state. Is the state ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
And the defense is ready to proceed.
The defense is ready, Your Honor.
We'll begin now with opening statements.
Thank you.
Oh, and while he's getting ready there, been there, done that, drops $20, says for the wood chipper fund. Thank you so very much, Ben. Appreciate that greatly. We're nearly halfway there already. Cool. Jeff Moser says she's looking at life without parole, I'm guessing. I'm not sure if this is a death penalty case or not, but yeah, one of the two. I think I'll have to check. I'll double check.
This
Right.
is
Good.
Quentin Simon, 20 months. Like all children, he was blameless, he was innocent, and he was beautiful. And like all children, he was totally defenseless, totally and completely dependent on the adults in his life to take care of him and to look out for his safety. And the evidence in this case will show that the defendant violated that trust, that most basic, sacred trust of a parent, in the most horrible way. In the middle of the night, she killed him, her own son, got in her car with his body, drove to a dumpster, and threw him away like a piece of trash. She would go home, go to sleep like everything was normal, and wake up the next morning and report it to the police as an abduction. I woke up, my front door was open, and my child is missing. And the story started to fall apart pretty quickly because of good, solid police work. But she would go on to tell a series of evolving lies over several weeks, only moving from one lie to the next as the police picked apart the first lie and presented her with the evidence that made the first lie untenable. So now it's time to move on to lie number 2, 3, and 4. And as they're doing this with her, they're also searching for his body, which they ultimately discover about 6 weeks after his disappearance in a local landfill, in pieces, unfortunately. And as a result of all of that police work and investigative efforts, which I think you'll be quite proud of when you hear about them in detail, the defendant is charged with his murder. So that's sort of the 50,000-foot view, the bluff, the bottom line up front for the military folks here. A little more detail on what happened, what the evidence will show. The 2 days that we're primarily concerned with here are October 4th and 5th of 2022, specifically the night of October 4th, moving into the morning of October 5th. Now, at that time, and I'll try to go slow for those of you who are taking notes. At that time, the defendant is living here on the west side of Savannah, jurisdiction of the Chatham County Police Department, in this house that's roughly in the center, with an in-ground swimming pool in the back. It's on Buckhalter Road, 535 Buckhalter Road. She had most recently lived in North Carolina, where she had met and lived with her most recent boyfriend, Daniel Youngkin, who you'll hear about. And some months before October of 2022, they had moved down and were living in this house at 535 Buckhalter. Now, the house belonged to the defendant's mother, Billy Joe Howell, who you see here, and her husband, Thomas Howell, who is not the defendant's father, but is her stepfather. Also living in the house at that time is the defendant's brother, Paul Simon. They have the same mother.
So we got Billy Joel Howell, and Paul Simon in the same house. Interesting. Billy Joel and Paul Simon live together.
and Daniel Youngkin, her boyfriend from North Carolina, and the defendant's 3 children. October of 2022, she has 3 children by 3 different men. The oldest is Zane Wharton. I think you'll hear was roughly about 3 years old at the time. Zane has been through a lot with her. He's her firstborn son, and I expect you'll hear testimony that she considered him her ride or die. That's her guy. Sky Youngkin is an infant on the far right there. That is her youngest child by Daniel Youngkin. And in the middle was Quentin. Quentin was her child by a man named Henry Bubba Moss Jr. You'll hear that she'd had kind of a tumultuous relationship with Mr. Moss, that they had split before she even knew she was pregnant with Quentin, and that he initially didn't even believe that she was pregnant when she told him, and that he was never a part of Quentin's life at all. And I expect you'll hear some testimony about the way that background influenced the way that she treated Quentin. But you're supposed to love all your kids equally. You're supposed to treat them all the same. I expect you'll hear some testimony that didn't happen. That she treated Quentin differently, and not in a good way. Here's the house from the street. The master bedroom where defendant's mother, Billy Jo Howell, and her stepfather, Thomas Howell, lived is over here in the 2-story portion of the house, but on the first floor. Brother Paul Simon's bedroom is upstairs, and you'll hear in one of the defendant's interviews, she'll say, when you're up in that room, you can't really hear anything that's going on downstairs. It's kind of its own layer up there. Now, the defendant, Daniel, and the 3 children lived in a bedroom right through this front door. I think there was some sort of addition or something on the house at one point. This bedroom that they live in appears to be like a converted one-time living room or something like that. If you step through that front door, this is what you see. You see a couch in the foreground. You see a desk behind that. And then on the far wall there, you see a bed. That's the defendant and Daniel Youngkin's bed. If you pan to the right, you'll see a closet door here. And then it's hard to make out in this picture, but beyond this closet door is a door into a bathroom that then feeds into the dining room. And that is the only way to get from this room to the main body of the house. You see a race car bed there. That's where Zane slept. We further pan to the right. You can see that race car bed completely, and you see a projector on the wall, evidently for supposed for watching movies or something while you're sitting on the couch. And then if you pan into that right-hand corner, you see this pack and play. That's immediately to the right as you go in that front door. And that's where Quentin slept. That was Quentin's bed. Now, that sort of sets the scene.
God, this is so tragic.
Living in this house, and where they're sleeping. Before we come back to the morning of October 4th, I want to talk to you about what the evidence is going to show as far as what's the biggest thing going on in the defendant's life. And the biggest thing going on in her life in the months, days leading up to October 4th is the status of her relationship with Daniel Youngkin. Things are not good. She is feeling unloved, undesired, ignored. And I'll show you a couple of text messages taken from her phone by the investigators that show this. Now, this is kind of small on here, and it's kind of bright, so I'll read it for you for those of you who can't see. Some of you may be able to read it, perhaps not all of you can. This is July of 2022. I want to feel beautiful, not barely average. I want to feel loved and not just liked. I want to feel wanted, not just tolerated. I want to be able to look at you and know it's just me, not wonder how many others there are. I want to feel like my body is worth showing off, not like it's just been trashed from having 3 kids. I want to feel the way you made me feel in the beginning, like I'm treasured and safe, not like I'm just here because you really don't have a choice. And you'll see quite a number of messages like this. It's basically an unbroken string of text messages all the way up to the day that she kills Quentin. August 6th, yeah, go get yourself some ass. I know mine is not good enough. Never was, never will be. September 10th, you're the reason I'm angry every day. You're the reason I'm depressed, why I feel the way I do about myself. Now, this is not a minor thing for her. I told you it's probably the biggest thing emotionally going on in her life. The way that she perceives herself to be being treated by Daniel, and perhaps to some degree actually was being treated by him. It's at least how she feels. This is such a big deal for her that with her phone, at one point she filmed something that can only be described as a digital suicide note.
Oh, no.
All right, she's in the car, and you'll hear her at the end say, I've got to go. I made it to the river. She's in her car, evidently contemplating driving her car into a river and ending her life. And she starts out saying goodbye to her children. She has some kind words to say about Zane. She has some kind, loving words to say about Sky. You might perceive that she momentarily kind of seems to be at a loss for what exactly to say about Quentin, our victim, middle child. And then she goes on to explain that the message is clearly addressed to Danny. She goes on to attribute what she's about to do to the way that Danny has treated her. Now, this is a 4-minute some video. It's a little long for an opening statement, but we're going to watch the whole thing. And we're going to watch the whole thing because it's an important window into her state of mind at this stage in time. This video was filmed in August of 2022, but the evidence in terms of the text messages and her statements will show that nothing really changed between when this video was filmed and October 4th of 2022. So with that preview, I'll play this for you now.
To Sky, Zane, and Quentin. Mama tried. Your mama's not here no more because she doesn't love you. I do. I can't love myself. If I can't love myself, how can I love y'all? I have tried over and over and over, and I failed. I scream for help, and I don't get it. Sky, you are such a beautiful little girl. I wish I could watch you grow up. I wish I could hold you for your first heartbreak because my mama didn't. Sky, I love you, baby girl. And Zane, you were so handsome, so sweet, so protective. You were going to be such a good man one day. Just a good man. I hope you grow up and you learn what loyalty is. And you learn how to treat a woman and how to love a woman. And Quentin, baby, you are a middle child. I wanted you more than life itself. But you've proven that it was only one way. That feeling was only one way. That love, that loyalty, it was all one way. You take care of my kids, okay? You couldn't take care of me. You couldn't love me. You couldn't do me right. So please, for the love of fucking God, do my kids right. And the kids running up at the river now, bye, Danny.
I'm at the river now by Danny.
Okay, real quick here. I was giving her the benefit of the doubt there at the beginning. It sort of sounded like the distraught person who really wasn't prepared to deal a lot with life, and it was a tragic situation all the way around. But as that went on, it turned from the "oh, I love you, I don't deserve to be here, I don't deserve you, I'm not worthy of being in the world," to an angry tirade, where it was like, "Yeah, you didn't love me, you didn't want to have sex with me, you didn't want to do this." And it's not the "I need to delete myself because I'm out of options in life." This is, "oh yeah, watch me. What happens if I do this? It's all your fault." I'm not buying this. Just got to say. Well,
So that's where she was at. This is her emotional state in the summer, fall of 2022. That brings us back to October 4th. And here I'll give you sort of an overview of what the evidence is going to show us to the sequence of events of that day. Now, the first thing to establish is that on the relevant dates here,
and I'm going to speed this up to 1.25 speed and see how that sounds.
Her stepdad are out of town. They're not in town. They're not in the house. They are sort of out of play. I expect that to be undisputed. So that leaves in the house Paul, the defendant, Danny, and the three children, Zane, Quentin, and Scott. In the morning of October 4th, quite early in the morning, in fact, the defendant and Danny take the three children to babysitter Michelle McCarthy and her two teenage daughters that live on the same street. They live like right across the street on Buckhalter. And it says babysitter up here, and I've called her the babysitter, but really you'll hear from Michelle, one of her daughters, and it comes across more like they're almost like a second family or a substitute family for these kids because of the parental shortcomings at 535 Buckhalter. So the evidence might show that babysitter kind of undersells it a little bit. And the child care arrangement was this. At this point in time, Danny and the defendant are working at a warehouse in Port Wentworth, unloading, loading boxes. They're carrying boxes in the warehouse in Port Wentworth. And their shift starts at 6 a.m. They're working the 6 a.m. shift. So early in the morning, on the way to work, they'll drop off the three children with Michelle, with her two teenage daughters. And so they do that. And they both go to work. They clock in at essentially the exact same time, a little after 6 a.m. on October 4th. And they clock out less than 2 hours later. And the reason they do that is the defendant is experiencing some kind of dental issue. She has a tooth that's bothering her, and it needs to come out. And so they clock out right around 8 o'clock, just before 8 o'clock in the morning, and they go to some type of like emergency dental clinic or walk-in dental clinic. And she gets a tooth pulled. These are some pictures, selfies she took of herself in the dentist chair, and you can see the side of her mouth on the left side there, I think, is kind of swollen. She sent these to Daniel, Young, and Danny, who was sitting out in the waiting room waiting for her. And so after this, they do not go back to work. They go home. And the rest of the waking hours of the day are pretty normal. They get some lunch. They relax. Her mouth is bothering her. She's tired. She's sore. And eventually, at about 4:30 in the afternoon, they go and they pick up the three kids from the babysitter from Michelle, and they bring them home. So at that point, Danny, the defendant, and the three kids are in the house. Now, Paul, he worked at the same warehouse but he worked a later shift, and you'll hear what it is. It's something like 2 p.m. to late at night, around 10 or so. That was Paul's shift. So same place, different shift. So he's not there in the afternoon. Now they're there. They do dinner. They do bath time. They put the kids down. Quentin in his pack and play. I think you'll hear testimony or a statement from the defendant that Sky, the infant, slept on that couch that we looked at, and Zane in the race car bed. And I think it'll be undisputed, and I expect that it'll be undisputed that, at around 10 p.m., Quentin is fine. He's just in his crib, in his pack and play for bedtime. Okay. And what happens at this point sets off a chain of events that goes over the next couple hours and results in tragedy. And that is that the defendant and Daniel have yet another argument about how he's treating her. So sometime a little after 10 p.m. And that this is something she told to detectives eventually in some of her interviews. About how he doesn't want her, he doesn't want to touch her, he's not feeling desire for her like he used to. We've already talked about this is a major trigger for her. This is the biggest emotional issue going on in her life, and it's significant. It drove her to the brink in the video that you've watched. This is not a minor thing for her. And so she leaves the house after 10 p.m. on the first of 2 trips that you'll hear a lot about in this trial, and that she didn't really want to talk about, at least truthfully, with investigators. And that first trip is to the drug dealer. She says that she left so that things wouldn't escalate between her and Dan. She was upset. That's her word. So it wouldn't escalate. The first place she goes is this Circle K. And I should have pointed out that you can see her getting out of the car. That's at 10:29 p.m. So about 10:30. I'll back up and you can see her getting out of her Dodge Journey with a blanket wrapped around her shoulders. She's not in a good state. Anyway, 10:30, she goes into the Circle K. She buys a couple convenience store items. And then she texts Danny. He's got her saved in his phone as Lanny Baby. She texts him, I'm going to run to 204, I guess. That's at 10:32. Immediately after she leaves the Circle K. She might still be in the parking lot for a minute. And 204 is an area you'll hear about in this case. It's sort of it's shorthand for our drug dealer. I'm going to run to our drug dealer. This is Highway 204 is what this is in reference to. And their drug dealer lives on the street right off 204. So she's going to get drugs to try to make herself feel better. This is a screenshot of some GPS plots from her phone that the police eventually made after getting into her phone. You see Highway 204 here. And this red kind of blob up here is a series of GPS points showing that she's at the drug dealer's house on Arkwright Lane from about 10:45 p.m. to 10:55. And she's scoring drugs to use that night because she doesn't like the way she's feeling. This is some information exported from her cell phone extraction showing that while she was there at 10:49, she made an $80 Cash App payment to a Timothy Weston, who is her drug dealer, at least one of them. While she's gone, Paul gets home. He had clocked out at 9:56 p.m. And I think he will say that he took him a minute to get home, so he was smoking a blunt in the parking lot or something like that. You're going to hear a lot about drug use in this case. And he gets home while the defendant is still out on this trip to the drug dealer. And he'll tell you that when he got home, he went in and said hey to Danny, and he saw Mackenzie, saw Quentin in his crib, in his pack and play. Quentin was fine. He even interacted with him a little bit. He'll tell you what it was. Hey, little man, how's it going? And he sees that Quentin is okay, he's fine. May not be completely asleep yet, but he's there and he's okay. Now, by 10 after 11, this is another GPS screenshot. It's hard to make out on this TV. But this is, by 10 after 11, she's got a bunch of GPS points sitting at the house on Buckhalter Road. And this is just to signify that this is when she this is around when she gets home. 10 after 11. And so she's home at that point. Paul is upstairs in his bedroom, going to sleep, kind of secluded from the rest of the family. And Danny eventually goes to sleep as well. And you'll hear her say this to the investigators, that she was the only one up and active in the middle of the night, in the hours leading up towards 1 a.m. Danny is sleeping because he's going to get up and go to work in the morning. He has to get up at like sometime between 5 and 5:30 to go to work. And Paul is sleeping as well because he just got off work. He's tired. And you'll hear her say that I was the only one up and about. My tooth was hurting. I couldn't sleep. What she's doing is she's going on a bender. You'll hear her admit to this eventually. She didn't want to talk about it initially, but you'll hear that she eventually acknowledged that she was up kind of frantically using drugs for an extended period of time while everybody else in the house is asleep and out of play. You'll hear her talk about it. I would hit a line. I would go outside. I would smoke a blunt to kind of bring myself down. Maybe smoke a cigarette. Then I'd hit another line and repeat the cycle. So she's in her house by herself, physically uncomfortable because of her dental issue, emotionally wrecked because of what's going on with her and Danny, and it's resurfaced again this night. Although resurface is probably not the way to put it, because it's just an ever-present problem for her. And this is a bad situation. Right? This is a volatile, dangerous situation.
Someone's asking how old she is. 25, I believe, now.
Something that she later said during the investigation on a recorded call, on a recorded phone call to Daniel, who was cooperating with the police and trying to help them gain information about the effect that cocaine has on her. It's not just fun for her. You'll hear her say that it makes her angry and impulsive.
I become angry and impulsive when I'm like.
So those are the conditions. She's up all alone, physically uncomfortable, emotionally unhappy, unstable to some degree. And around 1 a.m. probably, she kills Quentin. Now I'm going to focus on the what she did, when things happened. And probably in closing argument when all the evidence is in, we'll talk to you a little bit more about the why. Why exactly in that moment did she do this? But for now, I want you to just understand the sequence of events and what happened with it. She takes his body and puts it in Dodge Journey, Georgia tag TEN 9300. And she begins the cover-up. The cover-up is not just the lies to the police. The cover-up starts immediately. A little after 1 a.m., she drives down Buckhalter Road, which turns to the right here, but it's still Buckhalter Road at that turn. It comes into Ogeechee Road right here. And she pulls into this mobile home plaza. It's right here. Mostly what you're seeing is trees, but there are mobile homes in here. This is Azalea Mobile Home Plaza. And there's a convenient stand of dumpsters sort of hidden away under some tree cover in the tree line there. And she throws Quentin's body away like a piece of trash about 1:17 in the morning. She drives home. This is another export from her phone, showing that her phone was locked from 2:01 in the morning until 9:13 in the morning. And this is just kind of a shorthand way of saying that's roughly about the time she eventually goes to sleep. And her phone is inactive. Now Danny wakes up for work a little after 5, and he tries to wake her up to go to work. She's supposed to go to work with him. Remember, they work the same shift. She has been up all night doing drugs, and he's been, responsibly sleeping, so he's able to get up for work. And he cannot wake her up. She will not wake up. And at this point, he's trying to get out of the house to go to work. And he believes that all 3 children are there. He does not go over and check the packet plate. He doesn't even know that Quentin is gone. You saw in those pictures the packet plate is all the way across the room in the far corner. It's not right next to the closet. It's not right next to the bathroom. He can't wake her up to go to work. And he's annoyed by this because this is, I think you may tell you it's not the first time this has happened. And they are kind of tight on money. They are trying to make money to either put a down payment on a house or a security deposit on an apartment so they don't have to live with their mom anymore. And he'll tell you that he was frustrated by this. You're not going to get up and come to work and make money. And his decision at this time was to say, well, okay, you're not going to come to work and make money. We're not going to spend money on a babysitter today. Because they pay her every day, Michelle. And so he texts Michelle, hey, the kids are going to stay here with her today, Miss Michelle, at 5:20 in the morning. She says, okay. And the reason for that is his thought is, look, if you're not going to get up and make money, you can stay here and watch the kids. Wake up and find these kids are still here. You can deal with them. They're yours. So he goes to work, and he clocks in at 6:11, 6 a.m., 6:11 a.m. And he will clock out at 9:15, a little over 3 hours later. And the reason, so situations like this, it's all hands on deck. Everybody comes out. Forensics comes out. The forensics unit came out, had a drone up looking for Quentin. Patrol officers are being pulled from other beats, other areas of patrol to canvass the area and look for Quentin in the woods. All sorts of people are coming. Most of the command staff for the Chatham County Police Department showed up because this is a big deal. They take these things very seriously. One of the specialized units that responded after patrol officers had gotten there was the detectives for the Chatham County Police Department, CID, Criminal Investigations Division. And the first detective there for CID is a guy you'll hear from, Sean Wilkins. Sean Wilkins shows up, and he's the one who conducts the first, what you call more like the first formal interview with the defendant. And most notable from that statement that he takes from her at this time is when she says she went to bed and when she says she got up. You'll hear that she tells him, I went to bed around midnight, and I got up around 9. She doesn't say anything at all about this trip to Azalea Mobile Home Plaza a little after 1 a.m. I just want to talk about that because that's the trip that she took to get rid of Quentin's body. So here's her telling Wilkins, I went to bed around midnight and I got up around 9 a.m.
When's the last time you saw your child?
When I went to bed last night.
And what time was that? Do you remember?
Around 12.
12? Okay.
12 when I went to bed. I listened to your room yesterday.
I'm sorry, that's it.
So I went to bed kind of late.
I get you. Listen, I had it on too.
So I got up this morning about 9.
About 9?
And my front door is open, so I went up and I shut it, not thinking about anything like that. And I look over and check my kids, and he was going, oh, this were there. He was going,
It's all right.
This is either a case of the most misunderstood woman in the history of the world or a special kind of evil. Oof. I don't have words exactly. Let's keep going.
Went to bed at midnight, woke up around 9. No mention of the Azalea trip. I told you there were 2 trips, 2:04 earlier in the night, 10:11. Trip number 2 was that Azalea trip, a little after 1 a.m. And she is totally omitting that. Now, all hands on deck, right? Missing child. There are detectives working on this case that aren't even out at the scene from the very beginning. One of them is a Chatham County Police detective you'll hear from named Kiana Robbins. Kiana Robbins is at the Islands Precinct, I think is where she was on Johnny Mercer. Not anywhere close to here. But she's in her office, she's sitting at her computer and she's researching. She's seeing if she can find some helpful information. This is a stock photo of what's called a flock camera. The flock system is a series of cameras that are set up around town at major intersections or along busy roads. And what they do is they snap a picture of the license plates of all the cars that drive by. And police can use these for a number of different things. One of the things they can use it for is, say you have somebody who flees from a traffic stop and actually gets away. The police can't pursue them without undue danger. They can take that tag number of that individual, they can put it in the flock system and put like a lookout out for them. If that tag hits on any other cameras, it'll alert the police and they can try again and make the traffic stop. Another thing that the police can do, and what Detective Robbins did, was look up vehicles registered to the defendant. She finds that Dodge Journey that the defendant drove to dispose of Quentin's body, and she puts it into the flock system, looks it up in the database to see what, if any, flock cameras that vehicle has hit on anytime recently. And she sees that car has been out late at night, driving around.
She's toast.
On trips that the defendant hasn't mentioned yet. She radios that information, or maybe calls via phone. This is the tag she looks up. That's the Dodge Journey in the driveway at the time of the police response. She calls Lieutenant Foster, who you'll hear from. This is after the defendant has told Wilkins.
The Orajel story?
Hasn't mentioned anything about the Orajel trip or the Azalea trip. Foster goes up to her. He now has this information that this tag has been hidden on some flock cameras. It seems to have been driving around during the night.
Oh, I remember the Orajel story. Okay.
Which is like kind of a managerial type position. He's by this time he's the senior man on scene, I believe. But he has background in investigations. He was with the Savannah Police Department, I think, at one point in their violent crimes unit, investigating homicide. So he knows his way around an investigation. He knows how to do these sort of things. He goes up to her armed with this information about the flock hits at night. He wants to know what these trips were about. So he goes up to her and he asks her, "Hey, did you go anywhere last night?" And he's a savvy guy, so he's careful to tack on, you know, like where the kidnapper could have followed you home. And she seems to know, the evidence will show that she seems to know that he knows something about this trip to Azalea that she took and has not mentioned to this point. And so she comes up with a story. It's not totally clear when she came up with it. But the story is that, oh, that trip that I took away from my house shortly after 1 a.m., that was to go pick up Orajel from a friend at the Chevron. Now, the Chevron is right next to Azalea Mobile Home Plaza. They're kind of right next to each other. And so that's her story. This is what she was doing, driving to that location at that time. My tooth was bothering me. I didn't have any Orajel. I went to pick some up and got some from a friend. This is the first appearance of the Orajel story, which lasts for about a week or so. Maybe a week and a half.
Did you tell me last night or yesterday with Faith that maybe he could have followed you or something? Did you go anywhere? Just you made you yourself.
Yeah, I know. I did Temple yesterday, so you maybe I went to the Orajel.
2 o'clock yesterday afternoon?
No, like morning, I have to go to sleep.
Okay, so where'd you go?
Right up the road, right there, that Chevron. My friend that I used to work with, she had Orajel there, I asked her to go to home.
Did you go anywhere else? Have you made anything home? So when did you get home?
What are you going to do? I was on my phone. So
25?
I was out for like 12 minutes.
All right, so that's the story about what I was doing when I drove there. Now, I'll tell you this. She's trying to show them on her phone this trip on an app called Life 360. Life 360 kind of generally tracks your movements. You can join with your family, and they can see where you are and have been, and vice versa. You may be wondering,
Isn't Life 360 what they brought up in Karen Reed's case, too?
Nature, why is she trying to show it to them on her phone? And you'll hear testimony that the reason that she was comfortable holding out her phone as corroboration for this trip to the Chevron is that, again, the Chevron and Azalea Mobile Home Plaza are right next to each other. And looking at the screen, you can't necessarily tell which one she's at. You can only tell that she's in the general area. So she believes that this kind of helps prove that I'm telling the truth about being at the Chevron. Now, the police would later pull very precise GPS data from the phone, like not just looking at the screen, but from the actual phone, that puts her not at the Chevron, but right at the dumpsters at Azalea, which I don't know, maybe 100 yards, 75 yards from the Chevron. But that's why she's holding the Life 360 out and saying, look, this helps me. So that's the first appearance of the Orajel story, to explain the Azalea trip. They take, the police take all 3 of the adults in the house. Eventually they say, you know, we really need you to get Danny, Cole, and the defendant to the police station, sit them down for formal interviews, and just get like a complete sequence of the day from all 3 of these people. And the first interview with the defendant takes place in something that they call the lactation room or the nursing room. I think you sometimes also hear these things referred to as mothering rooms. And the reason for that is that Danny was in the single interview room that they have with the cameras wired up in the corners and all that. And this video is recorded on Detective Marion Lemon's phone. Now, by this time, this is a joint federal and local investigation. The FBI has shown up because they get involved in kidnappings, abduction cases. And what happens at headquarters is that they pair off teamwork. One FBI agent, one detective, and they each in a pair interview each of these people. And so Detective Lemons is paired up with Special Agent Brad Snyder, who you'll hear from. They were kind of partners throughout this investigation. And it's very open-ended at the beginning. What they're asking for is just give us an account of your day. Give us an account of the last 24 hours. Where have you been? What have you done? And so you'll hear Snyder asking him this. The video is really nothing special. I think it's just ceiling tiles the entire time because the phone is sitting on a table. But the audio is good. You can hear her. And she starts with we left the dentist and came home. So she does start at the beginning.
So right now, again, we're sorry for everything. I mean, we can imagine the emotions that you're going right now. But it's difficult. Just, you know, what's going to be the last 24 hours. And just kind of give me, you know, what she's been through in the past 24 hours. So about 24 hours will be this time yesterday. So about 1 o'clock yesterday. That's the time of your
So that's the start. I was leaving the dentist, getting my wisdom tooth pulled. And the end is the Orajel story, the Chevron Orajel story that she has as her last trip of the night. And she omitted that to Wilkins, is now had to come up with a story to cover this trip.
What was really bothering me about it was 1 in the morning. They called several friends to see if they got Orajel. So I got caught up with another one of my friends named Misty that I used to work with. She has a lot of mouth problems. And sure, she had any Orajel. Like her shepherd. And I called her and got that one back home. You also 12 minutes. I got it for my 360. I can show you right around. Everything was on the window. I was like, get back. Get home. Turn my mouth. Check all we need to get in there. Okay.
Now, a couple things about this initial interview in which she's asked to give an account of her movements for like the last 24 hours. No mention whatsoever of the trip to the drug dealer. She doesn't want to talk about what she was doing that night in the state that it put her in. So that's omitted completely from this interview. And now she's put a name to the friend who gave her the Orajel. Misty is what she calls her.
Yes, Misty, the mysterious
before
gas station Orajel deliverer.
The police asked her to go through her phone, and of course she's playing, you know, the victim. I'm the victim, the mother victim of a child abduction. So she probably feels some pressure to cooperate. And so she lets him go through her phone. A couple things I see is there's no call to Misty, and there's no call to Circle K to check and see if they have Orajel, which is something she said. First, I called Circle K to check and see whether they had Orajel. They didn't, so then I called Misty. None of that in there at all. They also see
Oops, another lie.
message from the defendant to Danny. We looked at this earlier. This is when she's leaving the Circle K and is about to go to the drug dealer at 10:30. Going to run to 204, I guess. This is something that she had left out in this initial interview with Snyder and Lemons. So they interview her again, and this time it's in the interview room. And they want to ask her, what's the deal with this 204 thing? Here's what she tells them. Oh, yeah, that was a trip to the drug dealer, but it wasn't actually to buy drugs. She tells them that the reason she left the house at 10:30 at night and went to her drug dealer, who was there for 10 minutes, was simply to pay off a pre-existing drug debt in the amount of $20. Now, the evidence will show that that story is just absurd on its face. But in addition to that, the cash out was for $80, not $20. And she'll later admit that this story wasn't true. But here she is launching it.
Yeah, and I was already heading back by the time that.
So at 10:40, you texted him that you were turning on 204 to go meet with?
Yeah, like I'm turning on 204 now, like I'm not meeting him. That's what I was trying to tell him.
And that's when you didn't get anything.
No, I just came into my office. I knew $10 on left. It was a couple days ago.
She's paying off a $20 debt, not actually buying drugs. Because after all, she tells them, other than marijuana, I don't use drugs.
See, you didn't get a person for it.
I see what I'm like. And even if I didn't get a person, I did $5. Last time I asked him. I was I don't feel like that. Like anything, anybody ever wear anything with this on me.
I'll smoke the hell out of some weed. Great.
Anything that's not homegrown or convenience store, I don't know. I mean, homegrown, I don't think that's so anything I heard. Homegrown is wrong. Not creative.
Very strong, detailed denial of the use of any drugs other than marijuana. And the reason they're asking her whether she got Percocet from the drug dealer that night is that they'd seen some messages about buying Percocets as well when they went through her phone. And they asked her about that. What about these text messages with you? Look like you're buying Percocet, using Percocet. And her story at this time is, oh, those are for a friend. I'm just the middleman for my friend Cheyenne, who likes Percocets but doesn't, I guess, know a dealer herself.
Things that you just have to answer for, so we have to get that understanding as to, what went on. We gave us authorization to go to the text messages. There's text messages in there about you purchasing most of it. As recently as within the past 24 to 48 hours. Just relying on that data or you tell me understand that.
So sometimes when I speak with I have different trainer. Training Crosby, and then she will call me from time to time. I still call her. She will call me on asking for her skirt, whatever, if I can get it. And I paid for it. I don't know. Whatever argument brought up, you don't want to know. So, but no, we haven't. That's for the process.
She does not want to talk about her drug use that night because that contributed directly to the state of mind that she was in. It relates so closely to her killing Quentin in the middle of the night.
Okay, I just want to take a little bit of a break here just for a minute because I was just checking and he goes on for about 20 more minutes, 15, 20 more minutes, but I don't want to let all the super chats and things build up too far. Then we got too much grounds to cover. So I just wanted to give a super special shout. Adair gifted 5 Legal Vices membership. We mentioned that. Thank you again so much for that. Adair K, you are super awesome. Thank you very, very much for that. And earlier, Jeff Moser had asked if she was looking at life without parole. I looked up and I can't find out if they are seeking the death penalty or not. I haven't been able to see anything on that, but it's felony murder, life without parole, possible death penalty. The death penalty, as far as I know, something way back in the back of my memory says that they took the death penalty off the table, but I might be misremembering. Maybe someone. Okay, yeah, Christy Lee says not a death penalty case. There was something way back in my head from like a year or more ago that seemed to recall that death penalty was off. Cherry Reed says wood chipper. This one can't argue with her if she's guilty of allegedly killing her child. And Chrissy Lee says, thank you for covering this. Didn't see any other law tuber talking about it. Like I said, I was interested in this in the beginning and when they found the boy, and then there was that weird interview with her and her mother sitting on the porch where the mother was just basically clearly covering up for her daughter. And it was really, really weird. And I said, I just can't do this. I'll pick it up again when they go to trial. And it just so happened that it coincided with this. Gosh, it's been almost 2 years. Damn. Time moves quickly. Trisha Lee, Trishy 818. Thanks for streaming this today. I appreciate your legal insights, Legal Vices. Well, I appreciate you being here, Trishy 818. It's not the happiest case, and normally we have a little bit of fun. We find a little bit of humor in it. This is just a straight up nasty case. And Law News and Laughter with Ozzy Overlord. Hey, how you doing, Hayden? Ozzy Overlord, everybody. Go on and go check out his channel. Does some good stuff. Very entertaining. Gives you a really good perspective on law-related items. Theories on the defense strategy counselor. We're about to find out. We haven't seen the defense yet. But we'll find out here in a few minutes. I guess probably 20 minutes or so from now. Those are the things that I wanted to mention here real quickly. And if we're keeping score at home, it looks like we're about $15 away from it reaching day 35 of the emotional support potato pig dog cam. But all right, let's get through the remainder of his opening statements here. He is painting a very, very grim picture of her. Oh, I was asleep for 9 hours from 12 whatever until then. Oh yeah, well, I did wake up to go to I made a call to Circle K, even though there's no record of me ever making the call. Then I had to meet my mysterious friend Misty in a mysterious parking lot to get some Orajel because my tooth hurt. Oh, and then, I did visit my drug dealer earlier, but not to buy drugs, just to pay off some old drug debts. I'll tell you 20, even though it was 80. And, the Percocet. No, that's for my other friend. What was her name? It was another stripper name. What was it? Candy or something. It was my other friend. She was the one. It was the Percocet first. So basically, she's high on Coke and Percocet. It sounds like to me. And then she does this horrific thing where, oh yeah, you're being watched, people. You're being watched. She's like, I was home. Like, well, yeah, you're the camera, the cameras we got all around this place. They seem to think you were out on the road in the middle of the night. It's Rhode Island. Island, by the way, Island, thank you so much. Special announcement regarding Island. She sent a Hujima what's it yesterday. She sent a Venmo. Was it Venmo? It was Cash App. She sent a Cash App of $5 yesterday. So thank you very much for that. It says for you to make the math and keep you on your toes. Thank you so much for the $5 that came through on that on Cash App. I deeply appreciate that. And she has also just gifted 5 Legal Vices memberships. So if you happen to be KLF, Ronan Warheit, Debbie Albert, Shenanigans, or Muggs, you got a Legal Vices gifted membership from Island. And sometime in the next couple of weeks, we'll be having the October members only stream, Saturday or Sunday this week or the week after. So stay tuned for that. And with that, we have for the 34th day in a row, day 34, we have reached that part of the show, which any of you that are familiar with the show here, day 34 in a row of unleashing the emotional support potato pig dog cams. And like I said, this case, we need the emotional support potato pig dogs more than just about any case we've done in recent history. So it is with much pleasure and much honor and much humility that I finally get to say today, for the 35th day in a row, it is time to
release the hose.
And we will bring in my co-host for the remainder of the evening. This is not Strawberry. This is Yoda. This is Yoda, one of the emotional support potato pig dogs, and the other one is right over here. That is Strawberry, the emotional support potato pig dog. They will be joining us for comfort, for snuggles, cuddles, and just general cuteness to help get us through this trial. Thank you very, very much for day 35 of the emotional support potato pig dog cam. Keeping the streak alive. Excuse me while I cough. And we've got this is a great time. We're 1 hour in, so this is a great time. We're going to take another minute and do a midstream little grift here. We've got 600 people watching and 386 likes. We need 220 of you to get down there and hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, because yesterday you guys got us over. You guys got, and by us I mean me, you got me over 81,000 subscribers. We are on our way to 100,000, 19,000 away. Right now, we've got 81,026 subscribers. So please, if you haven't subscribed, do me the pleasure of hitting that subscribe button. And for those of you that wonder why I'm doing this and not Sarah Boone, we've run out of Sarah Boone things to talk about until the jury sits. When they start streaming the Sarah Boone trial, we'll put this on hold, do Sarah Boone, and when Sarah Boone is over, we'll come back and do the entirety of this case thereafter. So come over here and take our like and subscribe poll. I'm curious to how many of you are familiar with this case. So how many of you are familiar with this case was the question. 10% of you so far have said you're intimately familiar with it. And those of you that are intimately familiar with it, what we want to do is we don't want to have any spoilers as to what happened in court yesterday in chat. But if people have questions about specifics of the case and things that you can or background information that you're able to provide, please fulfill the chat's desires in that regard. 15% of you said it sounds vaguely familiar. We've done 2 streams on it over a year ago. About a year ago, and I guess about 2 years ago, we did the other one. We did the original one about 2 years ago. We did an update about a year ago. 20% of you say I've read or heard a thing or two about this case, and full 55% of you, more than half of you, have never heard anything about it. So this is a new one for you, and this is a good one. It's good when there's a new case that you haven't heard about, because then you get to go in knowing absolutely nothing about it, and you can be an actual real juror who's saying, I haven't heard a thing about the case. Let's just see what's presented. And so far, the prosecution is presenting a very, very good argument for someone who is guilty of something. She's been charged with 19 crimes, including felony murder, but about 14 of the charges, I think, stem from providing false information to law enforcement. But anyway, he's putting together a great opening statement. It's a little long, but it's not boring. It's captivating. And he's painting a very bleak picture of a drug-addicted, drug-addled liar who lied about what she was doing, lied about killing her child, and then hiding it, involving people throughout the town and all the way up to the FBI in searching for a child, searching for a missing child that she knew was already dead and in a dumpster and by then dumped in a landfill and crushed into pieces. Mel and I just mentioned that we're gonna do Sarah Boone. We're gonna be doing it like we'll talk about that once we get the Sarah Boone trial going. We're gonna be doing it live. Don't worry about it. We'll talk about it then and there. But we've got to get there first. So all right, everybody, we are going to jump back into this. And again, a super special thanks to the Vice Racks of the day. The Vice Racks of the day is the person who gives the highest super chat or gifted membership purchase the first. Kathy Michael so far is the Vice Racks of the day with 5 gifted memberships. Island also gave 5, but Kathy was first. So if you want to dethrone him, it's going to be more than that. So all right, let's get back to, I don't want to ruin the momentum. Let's get back into the opening statements here.
So she feels that she has to tell these lies. And she wants to focus on 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. because after all, this is an abduction. It's not as though I did anything in the middle of the night. My child was taken after Annie left for work. That's her story. That's what she's trying to sell. And again, she forcefully denies this.
No, I did not take a burger step right now. I'll listen to you right now.
Now, police follow up. Okay, at October 5th, they get statements from the defendant, which is making all these claims that we've talked about. You get a statement from Paul, they get a statement from Danny. And what you do, and this goes late into the night, eventually it's kind of time to stop on October 5th and wake up in the morning and follow up on some of this stuff. So she has said that she was at the Chevron getting Orajel from Misty, her former coworker. And so they go out and there are 2 real notable things that happen between the October 5th statements on day 1 and the next interview. And one is that they do what they call a video canvas. They go out to this Chevron area where she has said that this Orajel exchange happened. And they look around, they see if they see any cameras. They go in and they ask if there's footage. And they get footage from the Chevron. And it does not show her stopping there. In fact, it shows her driving by. And they get footage from Azalea next door. And this is a major break in the case because what the Azalea footage shows is her pulling in, doing a loop around the complex, and pulling up to the dumpsters and sitting there for about 2 minutes. And that's when she throws Quentin's body away. So you're going to hear in detail about the footage from Azalea, the different cameras and camera angles, and what you can see on which one. But this is just a sample of that. And this is her driving in the Dodge Journey after 1 a.m. on a mission to throw away her dead child.
Oh, God.
So that's one notable item of follow-up that leads into the next interview. The other is that they go talk to Melissa Missy Bray. The defendant's calling her Misty on the first night. She doesn't even get her name right. But she describes her as a former co-worker from Bojangles. So Special Agent Snyder goes out to Bojangles, asks whether they could direct him to this person. They do. He goes out and he interviews her. And he asks her when the last time that she saw the defendant was. And she tells him, I haven't seen her for months. The last time that I saw her was when she ran it. It was like in July of 2022, months before what we're talking about. The defendant had run out of gas near Missy's house and walked to Missy's house and had borrowed a gas can. And their last contact was Missy texting her a few times saying, hey, can I get that gas can back? And that was it. And that was months before. And Special Agent Snyder looked at these messages and they corroborate what Missy is telling him. So, Chevron story, the met Missy at Chevron story is now just completely torpedoed. And so they bring her in for another interview on October 8th. And this one is with an FBI agent named Bridget Brock. And it's conducted at the FBI office in Savannah. And they confront her with these 2 findings. One, the security footage from Azalea and from Chevron. And 2, what Missy has told them. And she just sticks to the Orajel story and just insists that it is true. And this is what that sounded like. She just hasn't had time yet to figure out how she's going to play this with this new information that they're presenting her with.
We'll talk about that, okay? Because Missy had talked to you. Yeah, she has. She hasn't talked to you in quite some time. Yeah, she has. She did not have a conversation with you about the Orajel. Yes. So in your mind, you looked at all these timestamps and possibly you came up with a story that's partly true. No, that is true. But there's very, very many missing pieces, right? And in your story, you haven't been completely honest about where you were at and why you were there. I was 100% honest about where I was at. I showed the life 360. I told them I even gave her the Orajel that she gave me. Right, and that didn't happen. We've already interviewed Missy. Yeah, I got the Orajel. That did happen. She had a moment inside of her mouth. That's the reason why I got shot for it. You have to stop saying this. It did not happen. Yes, it did.
So that's the story on October 8th. I'm sticking to her guns. Now, October 12th, she comes in for another interview. And this is with Brad Snyder, who I've talked about already, who you've heard a little bit from, seen a little bit of, and an FBI agent named Savannah Solomon that he works with closely. And this is at the FBI office. And this is a long interview. I've pared it down a little bit so we don't have to spend 3 hours watching it during the trial, but it's still fairly long. And initially, at least, she's sticking to the Orajel story. That's Savannah Solomon.
Yes, this is Georgia.
On the right. I did meet Missy, 100%. It happened. I'm telling you. And she tells this kind of flowery story describing this meeting. She lavishes them with details about how this went down.
So you went to Missy's house, and did you go inside her house? She was just standing How long did y'all interact here with Missy? How long did you
2-3 minutes was quick little conversation. We went off her mouth with him. She does some crack with stuff. She did come up to the outside.
Now she has Misty was smoking crack, which she gave the defendant.
Oh no.
And what's going on here?
And I've been told my volume is extremely loud, so I'm going to work on that here.
Telling a story to cover something up that she did.
Objection, Your Honor, at this point in time, those opening statements, Mr. Dean has the right to say what he expects the evidence to show, not his interpretation of it. So,
the evidence will show that she added this detail to suggest a faulty memory on Misty's part. To suggest that, maybe this will help explain why Misty is telling him she hadn't seen it. I mean, it is nothing to her to just accuse Missy of having smoked crack during this meeting that didn't happen. But in any case, a few minutes later, she finally admits that she didn't see Missy.
That's a good thing. Did you get more last night?
I didn't know that last night. I found it in the cards were the ones I lost. I found them back to the house.
After insisting on the 5th that she met Misty at the Chevron for Orajel, and after insisting on the 8th that that was the truth, and after insisting even at the outset of this interview that it was true, she finally admits that it wasn't true and massages the inconsistency by saying, I didn't speak to her. But I did go there with the intent of seeing her. And she adds a detail that hasn't been included in any of her stories to date. Oh, and by the way, you've asked me if I threw any trash away there. Yeah, I did throw some trash away. She has a story for what that trash was. The evidence will show she did not want to admit that it was Quentin's body. So she describes this trash that she threw away as stinky shrimp pasta that had been sitting in the car in the trash bag and smelling out the car.
Oh, come on. Oh, she describes her child as stinky shrimp pasta. Great.
This is the most critical fact in the case. Throwing Quentin's body in the dumpster at Azalea, what she was doing at Azalea Mobile Home Plaza at 1:17 in the morning or so. And her explanation for that is, it's just such a minor thing, throwing away some trash. I didn't think to mention it in my hours of previous interviews.
Stop it. I don't think anything else, to be honest. It's just food. I'm in the car. See what I'm doing with it out.
He does not want to talk about what was in that trash bag. They also revisit the drug use, and you'll remember the strong denials.
Oh, so maybe she did take a Percocet along with the cocaine. Great.
Which are repeated on October 8th. Well, in this October 12th interview, she admits finally that, I did take a Percocet that night.
And you had a Percocet in conjunction with story. And about what time did you do that?
By the time I got home, I took it like 11 something, whatever.
And so Snyder asked her about her changing story. You've been adamant that you met Misty for Orajel, and now you're finally admitting to us, I actually didn't speak to her. You've initially, over the course of 2 interviews, maybe more, didn't mention throwing trash away, and now you got a very detailed account about doing that and what it was. And you, on the 5th, were adamant that you hadn't used any drugs other than marijuana, and now you're telling us that you did take a Percocet too. What's going on? Why is the story changing? And her explanation for that is, my faulty memory might have something to do with all the cocaine I was doing that night, which is a drug that had totally been absent from all of her prior accounts. It fits much more with the $80 cash app than the story about paying off the drug front. And so she is explaining her inconsistent stories by adding another inconsistency, which is an addition to cocaine use.
We're requesting a short break. Yeah, that makes sense. Let's take a 10-minute break and resume with the opening statement. Mr. Dean, again, I'm going to ask you not to talk about the.
All right, we'll fast forward through the. I thought that was going to be the end, but I guess they're just taking a little break in the middle of his opening statements. He's going long with these opening statements, and oftentimes that's a bad decision because you lose the jury at the beginning. Like, okay, we got the point. We're getting bored now. Let's move on. But his opening statements are far from that. They're engaging. They're continuing to pull you in and go, okay, what is she going to lie about next? What is she going to hide next? What is she going to get caught doing next? And you're just waiting to continually hear another shoe drop. Wow, we've been going a very long time with this. About an hour, a little over an hour with these opening statements. And I'm not bored at all. I'm captivated by this. And Matilda, all the way from the Netherlands with a super sticker. Thank you so much for the super sticker. It's a little red devil. Thank you so much, Matilda. And Tourette's Majestic with a membership for 14 months. Thank you so much for being a supporter for over a year. I'm usually on the fence at the beginning of a trial, but I've been following this since the toddler was missing. She's 150% guilty. I understand that sentiment. Like I said, we're entitled to our opinions and our beliefs. But when trial comes around, you've got to listen to what is presented in court and base your decision on what evidence is presented in court. But the prosecutor has already made a very, very compelling argument for her being guilty in his opening statement. And this isn't even evidence, and he's not even done. So yeah, I can see you reaching that conclusion, but keep an open mind. And I'm starting to think, and again, no spoilers, people in chat. We don't talk about anything that happened in court that we haven't watched yet, just so we can all watch it happen organically. I don't know, but given the strength of this opening statement and the evidence that they will likely be providing in support of the prosecution's arguments, I'm guessing we're going to have like a Chandler Halderson, Taylor Shabusiness kind of opening statement from the defense, which is like, Please try to keep an open mind. The end. Something along those lines is what I'm expecting. Because this is damning, it's compelling, and there's apparently a boatload of evidence to support this. D Floofy Cat with the 2 pounds Tuna Tuesday treats from Floofs and Woofs. Oh, my dogs got their treats too when I got home. I missed them. John Gordon with the $5. Thanks to you and Megan, I played Truck Simulator for far too long yesterday. Thanks a lot, Jeff. I haven't downloaded it yet. I gotta find some time to download it and play it myself. Christy Poo says, are the videos he's showing going to be in evidence? Yes. They'll introduce these into evidence during the course of the trial. And why is he showing them now? Because he can, and 2, because they're powerful, and 3, a good opening statement, which is what he's giving here. It's long, but it's damn near perfect, strategic wise. Is what you want to do is you want to give the jury a roadmap of what you're going to be talking about. We're going to show this. We're going to present evidence to show this. We're going to present our evidence to show this other thing. And this is how they all tie together and how they lead you to the only conclusion you can reasonably come to is that she must be found guilty of the 19 charges that have been filed against her. So yeah, this is just, they're showing them stuff that they're going to be introducing into evidence later. And like you said, it was the suicide video she made was rather long for an opening statement, but I think it got their point across. Darlene Wesley says, Legal Vices, I had to resubscribe for some reason, was a sub for over 2 years or more. Darlene, that is precisely why I say just hit the subscribe button. And if you are subscribed or think you're subscribed, just double check to make sure you are, because YouTube is asshole and they just sometimes unsubscribe people. I've been unsubscribed from my own channel. I've had mods be unsubscribed. YouTube just does it. They go, oh, especially after like now when you get a lot of subscribers really quickly, they go, yeah, we think we want to take some of those back, and they just unsubscribe people. But thank you very much. And again, that's the time to give you a reminder. We've got 600 people here, 454 likes. We need at least 150 of you to hit that like button, and many, many more to hit that subscribe button as we work our way towards 82,000. We passed 81,000 yesterday. Thank you so much. And Vice Squad, everybody here that's in chat now is officially a member of the Vice Squad. You guys rock. Thank you so much. And with a $10 super chat, Squirrel Nuts, first time super chat ever. Oh, you get a super special. We'll give you some applause for that. Thank you so much for your very first super chat ever, about an hour behind. Wanted to thank you for covering this and all your entertainment and coverage of legal cases and legal analyses. Thank you very much for that. Very, very kind statement. And I am proud and honored and privileged to be your first super chat ever. Thank you so much, Squirrel Nuts. General Scott, court proceedings always have low volume because no one is mic'd. I highlighted this because this guy is actually wearing a mic. and Law and Crime still can't get it right. The reason we skipped the first 20 minutes is the audio was completely messed up. But they kind of got it under control. They're still way low on their volume, but because people were saying I'm super, super loud, I did pull my volume down about 30% to kind of make it a little bit more even with the court case. It's the court that's quiet, not me loud. Island with the $2. Hate all of this. Doggo snores making it bearable. Dog snores. Thank you, Island. You're great. And Deaf Otter has gifted 5 Legal Vices memberships. If you are a recipient, which is Let's Talk Megan's Hair, Derek C, No Mandates, General Scott, and Hayden, Law, News, and Laughter with Aussie Overlord. You are the recipients of Deaf Otter's 5 gifted Legal Vices memberships. Thank you so much, Deaf Otter. Oh, what cute little otters. Do you actually have a deaf otter, or are you yourself deaf? Curious. Inquiring minds want to know. All right. As I said, we're going to skip through this 10-minute break, which seems to be much longer than 10 minutes. We're 20 minutes. That was almost a 30-minute, 10-minute break. All right. And we're going to get back into the opening statements, people. As soon as, all right, there we go. Okay, so that is our defendant there, and The bow tie
Okay.
wearing gentleman is her lawyer, and I assume she's
All
her lawyer on
16.
the side.
Thank you. And Mr. Dean will resume with his opening statement.
So,
Before we jump into that law news and laughter with Ozzy Overlord has just re-gifted his membership to Avalac or Avalch. Well, I'll say Avalac. If you happen to be Avalac or something similarly pronounced, make sure you give Ozzy Overlord a super special thanks for the gifted membership. Thank you, peeps. You guys are awesome. Thank you, Hayden. You're a gentleman and a scholar, a legal scholar at that.
October 12th, and we've come a long way from the October 5th account, only using marijuana that night. This is where we end up on October 12th.
Oh my.
And in this interview, she acknowledges that this wasn't like the one night she used cocaine. She's a regular user of cocaine, which she denied.
Jesus, she went from weed only to weed, cocaine, and Percocet.
At the end of the day, the most critical thing though is what happened to Quentin. What happened to Quentin on the night. And here is what she had to say about that. I don't know if I did something to him.
Holy shit.
If I did, I will take responsibility. She appears to be claiming something like a lack of memory. And I'll tell you that the evidence that you'll see is going to show that when she drove to those dumpsters, the Azalea that drove his body away, you can see that she's driving normally. You'll see that she comes to a complete stop at stop signs. She uses her turn signal. You'll hear evidence that the investigators could tell from her phone that she plugged her phone into the USB charger in the car when she got in. So the evidence will show that she was aware of what she was doing when she took him there, and that her claims to just not know what happened cannot be true. They do not fit with the other evidence. We've talked a lot about what she has been saying to the police and the FBI on the 5th, on the 8th, on the 12th. But we haven't talked much about the other aspect of the investigation, which is the effort to find Quentin and figure out exactly what happened to him. So I'll talk a little bit about that now. Now, on October 18th, police announced that they believe Quentin's body to be in a local landfill and that they're about to begin this extremely challenging needle in a haystack search of the landfill. And this is.
And just by way of information, this in the whole grand timeline of this case, this is where I had to stop paying attention to this case. And I said, we're going to peace out on this until it goes to trial. Because hearing the people talk about their search of the landfill and what they discovered in the landfill was incredibly powerful to me. And even me, the crusty old law rax who pokes fun at things and has a really sick sense of dark humor, I had to say just peace out until this case goes to trial. So yeah, this is where I bowed out of the of following this case.
This is how they got there. A detective with the Chatham County Police Department goes out to the mobile home plaza once these dumpsters become an area of interest after they've looked at the security footage. And he asks what garbage truck company services these dumpsters, and they give him that information. He gets in touch with that garbage truck company, and he learns that it was truck 309 from 3909, I should say, from a company called Waste Pro. This is the list of stops for that truck on that day. Service the mobile home plaza. This is on the morning of October 5th. Actually, Quentin wasn't in the dumpster for very long because it was empty that day. And this, what I'll tell you next, kind of goes to explain Quentin's condition when they ultimately found him. Not an intact body, but in pieces.
Okay, this is a rough testimony here, guys. It's got to be. I mean, rough statement. Sorry, it's not testimony.
Hydraulic forks into the slots on the side of the dumpster and drops Quentin and all the other garbage into the box in the back of the truck. There's a compactor in that truck that compacts everything. You want that compactor in there so that The truck doesn't have to go to the landfill as frequently. Makes the garbage smaller, can take more garbage. That truck went to the Waste Management Superior Landfill on Little Neck Road on the morning of October 5th. This is a landfill ticket. They weigh the trucks when they're coming in. That's how they know how much to charge the garbage truck company for this particular load. This is for Waste Pro Truck, 3909. And with this information, the detectives go out and they talk to the landfill manager, and he's able to identify the area that garbage was being dumped and then kind of shoved to on October 5th. And this kind of general area up here, that becomes the search area. So they have kind of an idea of like a general box in the landfill of where Quentin is going to be found. But this is still an extremely difficult thing. Even if you know the general area, there's like 2 more days of trash that have since been dumped there since the 5th. And this stuff gets compacted and moved around. They drive these compactors over it that have studded metal rollers, and everything just gets shredded. You may have this idea that you go into a landfill and it's just like a pile of bags of trash, just like they were when we put them in your garbage can at home. It is not like that.
And if any of you have been to a landfill, that's exactly what it is. They essentially have these gigantic earth movers, but they're like steamrollers, where instead of tires, they have giant rollers with huge studs on them. They're always churning and compacting the garbage.
You will see that it is not like that. Everything is shredded because compaction is the name of the game in landfills. You'll hear that. You got to get everything pressed down real tight because space is money. So at the end of the day, they have tons and tons of garbage to search through. And so they arrange the landfill search. They have some consultants from an outside agency come in and advise on this because it's a very technical thing. These consultants are able to tell them, based on the size of the box, about how many tons of trash they'll have to search through to exhaust the area. Based on known rates of searching, like pounds per day, they're able to give them an estimate of how many people this is going to take and how much time it's going to take. They have to order specialized protective gear, steel-toed boots, Tyvek suits, respirators, gloves to put over the gloves. This is a biohazard environment. And they have to find volunteers, and this is an all-volunteer duty. All right? And for weeks, volunteers from the police department and from some other law enforcement agencies came out here early in the morning, and they do this landfill search that involves an excavator up in the search area, scooping up garbage, putting it in a dump truck. Dump truck comes down on this open area bounded by cones that they call the search deck. Excavator down here kind of spreads the garbage, that particular load, I think they were calling lines, out onto the search deck. And the law enforcement officers, these volunteers, get online with rakes, and they just search through it. This is what that looked like. And they did this for days.
Oh my God.
In the heat, all that gear on. That's why I said earlier, these efforts can only be described as heroic. They want to find Quentin. The evidence will show us that these things are not typically successful. There's a very low success rate with these landfill searches because, again, it's a needle in a haystack proposition. But that's what the police are doing while she is playing games with investigators and changing her story again. October 24th, while the landfill search is underway, and those volunteers are suffering the heat out there, not knowing whether the next rape is going to bring more tedium and boredom, or if it's going to bring the horror of what they're actually looking for. The defendant is still playing games. Having already admitted that she went to Brazil.
This was the interview I was talking about when I said I heard this interview and I'm done with this trial. This is the moment when I said I'm done with this until it goes to trial. This was my trigger point.
And threw away trash, but it was only stinky shrimp pasta. She does an interview with News, WTOC, in which she still, even at this late stage, this is October 24th, that's 19 days after the initial 911 call, and after several interviews where her story has just been shot to pieces. She does this interview where she holds herself out as the victim of a child abduction, still on that. and has the gall to make an appeal to the public to just please bring Quentin home safe. And the evidence will show that she knows he's not safe. And she knows he's not coming home.
My kids woke up to me screaming, "Where's Quentin?" They're running through the house. I ran and looked everywhere, inside, outside, so screaming for help. I've been here every day since this. I'm not running and I'm not hiding. And if something does come up that I am at fault, I will take myself to a police station. And I'll walk there. All we want is justice for Quentin Simon. We want justice too. We want answers. We don't care the cost. We want answers just like everybody else does.
Now, see, this is, but Mug says, watch Billy Joe. She knows. She knew. There is a strong indication that she knew before this happened. And if I recall, I can't, this is again, just vague, and it just popped into my head. So I didn't have time to double check. So I'm just talking out of my ass here. If I recall correctly, the mother has also been charged with something in relation to this, obstruction or something. If I recall correctly, someone in chat who is intimately familiar with this case can let us know if her mother has been charged with something. It's sending off the spider senses that I think I saw somewhere she'd been charged with something in relation to this.
We love you, baby Q. My little monkey, we want home.
That same day in which she's claiming to the news to have no idea what happened and to just want home, she sends this text message to Savannah Solomon of the FBI. And this is just the latest Hail Mary. After all the statements about going to the Chevron and then going to Azalea and what she was doing there, and I was actually throwing away trash and not Quentin. At this point, October 24th, the same day as that news interview, she and Danny are split at this point. He kind of seems to see the writing on the wall for her, has left town, I believe. I think they're not together at this point. And so now's the perfect time to try to put it on Danny. I'm not buying for Danny anymore. The reason why my story about Orajel and shit didn't make sense was because Danny told me to say that he was the one who left. My phone was in the car from my previous trip. And the reason she says that is her phone GPS puts her in the dumpsters too, not just the video. So anyway, she's throwing it on Danny and is now saying, you know what, I didn't actually make that trip. Well, that's me. And they get her in for an interview a couple days later to formalize that statement. And they just sort of let her talk.
I need a drink.
The evidence will show that it's clearly not true. It was a desperate attempt to just try something new after, a dozen lies to that point. That interview was on October 31st, last day in October. Now, on November 18th, about 3 or 4 weeks after they started searching through that landfill, it was an arduous task, challenging thing, all volunteers. They finally find what they're looking for. November 18th.
Oh, no.
It's a memorable day for the people who are involved in this landfill search because they find Quentin.
Just a warning here. People in chat have been saying that they show a skull. I don't know if Law and Crime has edited out or not since they showed this, but that may come up here on the screen. So just fair warning.
And he's not in good shape. Okay, they find him in pieces.
Fuck me.
Mostly bones. Foot.
Jesus. Fuck.
They're finding bones in different lines, spread out. He's worn apart. They send Quentin's remains up to the FBI lab in Quantico, Virginia, where DNA analysis is done. And they confirm what everybody already knew, is that this is Quentin. And the defendant comes in for one last interview. So that's where she ends up after having given this very detailed cover story about going to the Chevron to meet Misty for Orajel, and having added this later, this richly detailed account of having thrown away some garbage at Azalea in the dumpster, but it only being shrimp pasta. Her final story, when they found Quentin after tracing the trash and making it undeniable that what she was throwing away in that dumpster at Azalea was her son's body, the best she could do in her last interview is to claim a total and complete lack of memory from seeing him in his pack and play at 10-something to snapping back into consciousness on the way home from Azalea. And we'll watch it, you'll see more. Specifically, what she says happened is that she was driving home, hit a set of railroad tracks, and that jolted her back into now forming memories again. That's the story she ends up with. After those richly detailed accounts of false statements for what happened during that trip, now she just can't remember anything that happened during a critical time period in this case, the murder and the disposal of the body. So that is, as concise as I can make it, the account of what happened and what how the investigation unfolded. What will the trial look like? Okay, so that's kind of the story, start to finish. What will the trial look like? Trial's not like an opening statement. All right, we bring witnesses in one at a time. It can be kind of disjointed and choppy because each individual comes in and they can only talk about really their role and what they did, heard, saw, that sort of thing. You will hear from some of the responding officers. You'll hear from people like Michelle McCarta, people in Quentin's life that can tell you some things about how the defendant felt about Quentin and treated him. You'll hear from the investigators who took these statements and followed up on them. You'll hear from some of the people who were involved in this search of the landfill. You'll hear from some of the scientists at Quantico who were tasked with identifying Quentin and seeing what they could make of these remains, which are just totally torn apart. What I do not expect to hear is exactly how the defendant killed Quentin. And that's because she covered it up. It's because she got rid of the body. All right. The evidence will show that her specific intent from the outset is that he never be found at all. And him being found in pieces, little bitty pieces, was the next best thing.
Oh my God.
The judge will tell you that in a case like this, we do not have to prove exactly how the defendant killed Quentin. Under these circumstances, how could you? And that is a sensible rule. Because what we have to prove, what is important, is not exactly how she killed him, but that she killed him. The fact that she did it. And the evidence that we will present to you will do that. It will do that, beyond a reasonable doubt. So at the end of the case, when all the evidence is in, we will make our closing arguments, and we will ask you to find her guilty of all of the charges in the indictment. I want to thank you for your attention. This has been a fairly long opening statement, but it was important to us, because it's our one chance to do it, is to give you kind of soup to nuts from the outset. What is this case about, and what did this investigation look like? So I thank you for your attention.
Wow. I can't with this case. I know every case I've done, except for the the Taylor business trial. And that's because, I mean, we just knew she was going to be found guilty instantly for the horrific things she did to her boyfriend. They were so horrible. They were comical. I mean, we just knew that was going down, and we didn't have to pretend that they're innocent until proven guilty. Other than the Taylor business case, this here is now officially the first case when I'm like, she's guilty. Just I don't give a shit. She's guilty. I'll try, just for appearance's sake, to make it look as if I'm having an open mind about this case, and I'm willing to hear what the defense has to offer. But yeah, no. And again, we're not. The opening statements are not evidence. They are not evidence that's presented in trial. It's a roadmap where they're telling us what they're going to prove. But yeah, I hope there's a special place really close to the fire pit in hell for this woman. Yep, I can't pretend that I believe she's innocent until proven guilty. So let's hear what the defense has to say. I said what I think they're going to do, and let's see if I'm right. Before we get there, though, let's mention that Deaf Otter has clarified the Deaf Otter doesn't have a deaf otter, but many naughty muskrats. Does that count? Close enough. Close enough. And Erica Lanto Bedini, sorry, the pup on screen makes listening to this tolerable. And Calico 123 says the beautiful bulldog baby is making it less traumatic. And that is exactly why we refer to them as the emotional support potato pig dogs. And just look at Strawberry here, just for some reason, just looking all sad and depressed. Oh, you heard your name. Did you hear your name, Strawberry? It's Dargi in Korean. Dargi. Hi, Dargi. Say hi. Dargi, son. Dargi, son. Dargi, son. Oh, good boy. All right. There we go. Yeah, that's why we call them the emotional support potato pig dogs, because they're potato shaped pig dogs, and they provide the emotional support to you people. That's literally why we do this, because it gives people something to focus on. Silent PS is this talking about landfills, the smell, the seagulls, the waste of it all. Tough. And anybody that's been to a landfill, wherever you are, I don't know if, at least in the United States, I don't know if it's anywhere else in the world, but for some reason, there's always seagulls. That's the one thing I remember from going to the landfill every weekend or every other weekend with my dad to throw stuff away, was just the seagulls everywhere. Ugh. Donna Ralph says, what state is this court in? This is in Georgia. And Squid Pro Quo says, this is close to my house. My office was in Savannah. Ugh. Frustration. And Danielle Sally has become a YouTube member, has actually become a member of the Clean and Sober crew. Danielle, thank you so much for showing your support in this way, and I hope you stick around for a very, very long time. Thank you so much. I appreciate it greatly. And Karen G says, Legal Vices, thank you for covering this case. It is a super sad case here in my home state. You also are a Georgia resident, are you? Yeah, it's a rough case, and I'm sorry. My objectivity has just fucked right off. Yeah. Good luck, defense. That's all I can say. Let's see what the defense has to say about this.
Mr. Dean, turn to the defense. Does the defense wish to make an opening statement? Yes, ma'am.
All right, Orville Redenbacher's got something to say here, I guess.
Ladies and gentlemen, I don't intend to speak nearly as long as Mr. Dean did. Because,
well, let me provide my because you ain't got a lot to say. You ain't got shit to go on. That's what I'm gonna guess.
I don't intend to speak nearly as long as Mr. Dean did. Because frankly, this whole case is about rumor, gossip, speculation, and innuendo, and ultimately the state's bold conclusions about what they say happened but can't prove.
Get the fuck out.
Unquestionably, this is an emotional case. I know that. I have 5 children, 4 grandchildren. So I understand how emotional this can be. But this case can't be decided based on emotions. It has to be decided on facts and evidence presented in this courtroom. It can't be determined by emotions or their rumors and their gossip and their conclusions. And in the end, what you will determine is that's exactly the foundation of the state's claims. Bunch of conclusions, bunch of declarations, unsupported by actual evidence. These declarations about she did this at 1 o'clock, she killed Quentin, she drove here, and then all of that are their conclusions, what they have decided the evidence shows. But what is important in a trial is this witness stand. where witnesses testify and evidence is presented. It's not.
He's speaking truth. It's what happens over there, what the witnesses say and what evidence is presented. He's absolutely correct, but notice how he's not saying this is what actually happened. He doesn't have to. The defense doesn't have to say shit. The burden of proof is on the prosecution. But this is not the first time he's walked over to that defense stand and said this. This is very, very scripted.
What some lawyer says. It's not what the state declares the evidence to be, and that includes this discussion about the statements. Mr. Dean has his ideas of what those statements represent, but that's your job. And it's not to simply rely on the state's conclusions about what they mean. The state has a conclusion. The core conclusion is that LEILANI Marie Simon murdered her child. The evidence will simply not support that bold conclusion. That is why, after we've heard all the evidence and all the argument, the evidence will lead you to one place, and that is a finding with respect to murder and concealing the death of another of not guilty. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Your Honor.
Excuse me? Excuse me? That's it? Okay. I sort of called it. Not exactly. Thank you for mentioning we've had an exodus of dogs. There we go. Yeah. Yeah. I sort of, no, it was about 4 minutes, Booth, not 5. Okay. I sort of called this. I said it would probably be just because of the weight of the opening statement by the prosecutors. I presumed it would be something along the lines of we have a rush to judgment, laser focused thinking. Please keep an open mind. Thank you very much. It was a variation on that theme. It was a little bit stronger. It was a little bit stronger than the just keep an open mind. He's saying they will not be able to show this. Their evidence will not support this. But damn. Yep, weak opening statement from the defense. But again, what does he got to work with? Probably not a lot. Holy crap. All right. Yeah. I was expecting that about that long of an opening statement, but once he got rolling, I thought he was going to give us more than that. He's like, it's not going to show this. It's not going to be, they can't. All right. Good night. We're done. Bye. Thanks. Okay. Wasn't expecting that. And real quick, before we start with our first witness, I guess, holy crap. What are we looking at for on time? I can do about another hour here. And for those of you that are wondering, what about Sarah Boone? Really quickly, Sarah Boone, the jury selection is going on again today and likely tomorrow as well. So what we're going to be doing this trial until the Sarah Boone trial begins streaming. Then we will go through the Sarah Boone trial. Then we will come back to this, and we will do this trial in its entirety after Sarah Boone has finished approximately 3 weeks from now. But I mean, by that time, this case will be long over, but we're going to watch it anyway. No one else seems to be covering it, so I may as well. It's already been 2 hours. We are an hour and 56 minutes, but I'll do another hour. You continue law and crime and court. They're kind of the same. They're different, but they tend to always use the same pool feed. I believe this is a law and crime provided pool feed, and Court TV is borrowing off of this because at the beginning, Law and Crime says we're working on the audio. Is her lawyer hired or public? I'm guessing public. She was 22 and 23 when this occurred. There's no way she could afford a private lawyer, especially being a drugged out, horrible person. So I'm guessing that's public defenders. Oh wow, this is peeps. That was a weak statement. But all right, one thing we got to do before we go, this is just a ritual we do for the we got 650 concurrent viewers, 504 likes. Bear with us while we take about another minute here. And while I'm doing this, make sure you get down there and hit that like button. We've got, like I said, 504 likes. We should have 600 likes that quick. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, I would be deeply honored if you would subscribe to the channel. If you are subscribed, as we've already seen here in chat today, people get randomly unsubscribed. So if you are subscribed or believe you are subscribed, just double check to make sure you still are. And if you're not, resubscribe. We have the emotional support potato pig dogs that we unlock at the $100 level. And people in chat accuse me of keeping my dogs behind a paywall, which I don't do. It's just an achievement we unlock. It's not behind a paywall. Perhaps it's a distinction without a difference. But when we get to the 200 level, that is sort of the chat's revenge, where I am forced to try to empty the really bad whiskey off of my shelf or the really bad alcohol off my shelf. We are nearing the end of this, which is Costco's Kirkland brand blended Scotch whiskey, which is horrifically bad. And so for your punishment, for my punishment, for allegedly keeping the emotional support potato pig dogs behind a paywall, we do a shot of really horrific whiskey. I think we got about one more in there, maybe two, but I'll gladly drink the crappy whiskey today because frankly, I need it. Thank you very much, chat, for the support we've shown so far. We have unlocked the second level of achievement, and we're actually surprisingly close to the third tier. That is not good. Thank you, chat, for the punishment. All right. Calamity Jane says, "Yeah, I don't know him. I'm sitting here crying. She's evil." I'm with you 100%. Yeah, that was terrible. All right, let's get on with the witness testimony, I guess. We'll go for about another hour here.
This would probably be a good time to break for lunch, and then we'll resume testimony after the lunch break. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a time for lunch break. The time now is 12:10. I'm going to ask that you report back at 1:20.
All right, we're fast forward to 1:20 here, and this is, I guess, this is a good point to mention. This is how we handle trials here on Legal Vices on my channel. I'm in a terrible time zone. I'm living in South Korea, where I practice mainly maritime and corporate law. Right now, it's midnight. It's midnight here, 12:04 a.m. So what we tend to do when we do the trials is sort of the trial for the people that don't have time to sit and through all of the sidebars, lunch breaks, and everything throughout the entire day. So, for example, with the Sarah Boone trial or this trial, well, not this trial, this will be over. With the Sarah Boone trial, we'll watch the first day through to the lunch hour live, then we'll break. Then we'll come back the next day and watch the afternoon of day one at 1.25, possibly 1.5 speed, depending on how slowly they speak. We'll watch that. We'll skip the breaks. We'll skip the sidebars. And then once we finish the afternoon of day one, we will continue with day two morning session at the increased speed until we catch up. And then we'll watch it live through lunch, and then we'll do it again the next day. So we're always about half a day behind, but we skip through all the breaks. We skip through all of the extended downtime so that we can sort of keep it compact and go. That's how we handle the trials here. So stick with me. You watch it live if you want, but always make sure you come back and watch it with me the next day. And 79 Cecilia says, Legal Vices, am I remembering this correctly? She wasn't supposed to have custody of any of her children. Her mom was, but then her mom left her alone with the kids anyway. That rings a bell. I'm not sure, but that does ring a bell somewhere in the back of my skull. Yoda just walked by. There's Yoda. Yoda has returned. Yeah, that does ring some sort of bell in my head. I think you might be correct. All right, there are 4 minutes. Oh, I can't bring up there are 4 lights. We need to keep this. This case is not a joking case, unfortunately. All right. Yes, that is correct, says Megan McCarthy. I did seem to recall that, so you are correct. Yeah, don't say skull. Sorry. Yeah, bad choice of words. Yeah, don't say skull for a couple of days. I'll try not to. All right. That's it, people. Let's get back. They've had their lunch break, and we're going to start with the testimony. It'll be interesting to see how the defense lawyer handles the cross-examination of these witnesses. If it's his assertion that the evidence will not support what it is that the prosecution says it will support. Do your dogs need a CPAP machine? They could benefit from one, yes. All right, let's get on with it. Fast forward. Oh, the judge has
Martin Hilliard. LEILANI Simon is present in court with her attorneys. Martin Hilliard and Robert Purse, the state, is at their table. AUSA, Tim Dean, Assistant District Attorney Jenny Parker, and Detective Lemons. Just a couple of things. I think that as to the media, some were operating on a delay, some were not operating on a delay. I think we're all on the same 30-minute delay now, right?
Oh, that's interesting. They're on a 30-minute delay. I was not aware of that.
There are always some technical difficulties in the beginning. What would life be without technical difficulties? So everybody's running on the delay. I don't think we have any other issues with regards to the media. Thank you. And the jurors have returned from lunch and they are ready to
We're
go.
running on a 30-minute
And
delay and they still couldn't blur out the pictures of the kid's skull.
Is it Ben's right?
Come on.
Okay, let's bring the jurors out.
All right, the jurors are coming in, and we are going to get down to business with our first witness of the day, which is normally the one of the first officers on the scene, or the ones that conducted the interrogation. So we can get the jury seated. Moving right along.
Welcome back. I hope you had a good lunch break.
Yes, yeah, we saw our Bush.
And I trust that you were all able to comply with my instructions not to research the case and not to discuss the case.
Who's the first witness?
And for the record, everyone has either nodded their heads or responded yes. And with that, we're ready to get started. Mr. Dean.
Your Honor, the state calls Sergeant Bobby Stewart.
Bobby Stewart. I guess he's an officer. Come on up, Bobby. I like the prosecutor too. I don't say that a lot, but this it's a good prosecutor. I don't have any complaints so far. Judge, there hasn't been anything to see as far as the judge goes. We'll see how she handles the objections, how she handles the arguments.
Good afternoon, sir. Could you please introduce yourself to the jury?
Sergeant Bobby Stewart.
And is Stewart Stewart?
That's correct, sir.
Okay. And what do you do for a living, sir?
I am a sergeant with Town County Police Department.
That's the uniform?
Yes, sir.
Okay. How long have you been a police officer?
Probably about 34 and a half years.
And how long have you been a sergeant with the police department specifically?
Quite a while. I can't tell you exactly how many years, but it's been quite a while.
Now, what is your current position?
I'm a patrol sergeant, A-Watch.
What is A-Watch?
A-Watch is, we have different watches. We have A-Watch, C-Watch, D-Watch, and C-Watch, A, B, and C.
And are these different shifts?
Yes.
I apologize here, chat. I was going to mention these super chats here and other things before we got onto the witness testimony. Bear with me here while we mention that Ike has dropped Aussie $5. The defense lawyer has no law or facts to pound, so it sounds like he has to pound the table. Again, the defense doesn't have to pound anything. They don't have to say a word. They don't have to open their mouth. It is all the burden of the prosecution. But I have a sneaky suspicion the prosecution is going to be able to fulfill their burden of proof on this particular case. And Canonical Heat, how you doing? Canonical Heat. Pig dogs, pig dogs, pig dogs, pig dogs, better than bad booze any day. But I got them both, pig dogs and bad booze. Thank you very much for the super generous $20 canonical heat. And Bad Weather Biker, how you doing, brother? Thanks for covering this. What a sad trial. It is a horrific trial, but it is one that I wanted to cover. So that's what we're going to do. When we finish Sarah Boone, we will pick up where we left off, and we'll go through the rest of it. Thank you for being here, Bad Weather Biker. As always, rubber side down, brother.
Yes, sir.
What are the hours for AWatch?
AWatch, the hours now today is 6 to 6. 6 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Okay, so it's essentially the daytime.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And what is your position? Patrol sergeant for AWatch, you said?
Yes, sir.
What are your responsibilities in that role?
My responsibility is for during the day, the shift that we're on. I'm responsible for doing the briefing. At the beginning of the shift, I assign officers to divisions in Channel County.
Okay. Now, I'd like to draw your attention to the morning of October 5th, 2022, okay?
Yes, sir.
Were you working that day?
Yes, sir, I was.
And what were you doing on that day?
Patrolling Chatham County.
Okay. Any particular precinct or area?
I was in the West Chatham precinct of Chatham Parkway.
And were you the sergeant over all the patrol officers assigned to the West Chatham precinct?
Yes, sir.
And how many of them were there at that point? Patrol officers on the west side?
It should be total 7 or 8 that day.
Okay. Now, at some point on that day, on the morning of October 5th, did you respond to a call for service originating from 535 Buckhalter Road?
Yes, sir, I did.
And what was the nature of the call that brought you out there?
Missing child.
Now, when you get called out to a particular location on a particular call, do you yourself hear the 911 call?
You come out on the radio?
Yes. Do you hear the 911 call that was made, or are you just getting a call from a dispatcher?
No, sir. I don't hear what was said when the person calls in.
Okay.
The only thing I get is the dispatch, what the dispatch tells us.
And the word from dispatch initially was it's a missing child call.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, did you go to 535 Buckhalter Road?
Yes, sir, I did.
And how did you get there?
It was in my marked patrol vehicle. I drove there. I think if I'm not mistaken, I went down Chatham Parkway.
And what? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Chatham Parkway to Gorod Avenue to Buckhalter Road.
And what type of residence is 535 Buckhalter Road?
It's a 2-story, like a single family dwelling.
Okay. Do you see in front of you a document marked as State's Exhibit 1?
Yes, sir, I did.
Can you look through that and tell us what it is, please?
It's it would be to the east of Highway 17 on Buckhalter Road, which is off of Gorod Avenue.
Well, I just mean, what is the document in front of you? State's Exhibit 1. It's more than one page, is it not?
Oh, yes, sir, it is.
Okay. And what is it?
It's a little like maps off of Google.
And do those maps accurately reflect the location of this residence in Chatham County?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, I'd offer State's Exhibit 1 into evidence at this time.
I think I've already seen it.
Yes, Mr. Hilliard, just make sure you speak loud enough so that Ms. Natalie can capture your words.
I'm just gonna look through several of them. I think I've already seen them, Judge. I just want to make sure. Yes, ma'am. No objection. I've already seen them.
Well, while he's doing that, we just have to go totally off the rails here. First of all, Lancelot652 with the $5 says, I didn't know Morgan Freeman became a cop. Thank you very much, Lancelot. And Calamity Jane says Drake and Millie Bobby Brown is the next theory being talked about. The theory of what? It can't be a theory. She's married. Millie Bobby Brown is married to Jake Bon Jovi. She's married to John Bon Jovi's son. I don't know how Millie Bobby Brown found her way into this, but she's married to John Bon Jovi's son. They got married earlier this year, as a matter of fact. Why I know that, I don't effing know, but I do.
One is
Your Honor, may I now publish these on the screens?
yes.
All right, I'm on slide 1 here of State's Exhibit 1. This is the, I guess, Savannah, Chatham County metro area.
Yes, sir, that is correct.
Okay. And is 535 Buckhalter marked on this this map here?
Yes, sir, it is.
And can you step down and just point to us where that is on here? Okay. The red pin just to the left of Garrard Avenue.
That's correct.
All right, thank you, sir. You can sit down. Now, moving on to slide 2, this is a beat map of Chatham County Police Department beat 7, correct?
Yes, sir.
And beat 7 is further broken down into a number of neighborhoods. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And is 535 Buckhalter marked on this map as well?
Yes, sir, it is.
And what is it marked by?
It is marked by Buckhalter and Garrard Avenue.
Is it that red pin there that we see?
That is correct.
Okay. And 535 Buckhalter then would be in the Garrard Buckhalter neighborhood of beat 7, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, moving to slide 3, what are we looking at here?
Slide 3 is showing Buckhalter Road. It's also showing the residence where we responded to.
Okay, that's marked by the red pin there.
That's correct, sir.
And finally, slide 4, what are we looking at here?
Slide 4 is another photo of the residence, but it's a closer photo.
Okay. Now, when you responded to this resident, you mentioned you showed up in your patrol car. Where did you park?
I parked in the driveway just outside the gate.
Okay, so the jurors can't see what you're pointing at on that picture. So if you could just step down and tell us where you parked.
This is the driveway. I came in and I stopped just short of the gate.
Okay. And you can have a seat, sir. Thank you. And when you arrived, were there any other officers with you?
Yes, sir.
And who were those?
There was 2 other officers that came in behind me. Corporal Jefferson was one, and then the other officer, I think, was Voss.
Okay. Daniel Voss?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What about Philip Gormley? Was he there as well?
He came in right behind me.
Okay. And when you arrived, did you make contact with the defendant?
Yes, sir.
Where did you make contact with the defendant?
Just as I walked through the gate, they were walking towards the gate.
And who's they?
I saw a female, the lady sitting here with the glasses.
Okay. The witnesses identified the defendant. And what other, aside from police officers, what other people were on scene at the time that you arrived?
Myself. You talking about officers, sir?
No, other than police officers, what other people were on
The
scene?
people that I saw the young lady there. I saw a male subject, which I later found out was her boyfriend. And there was a little small child. And there was one more person standing back behind him.
Okay.
I think
And
it
was
was her
it
brother.
her brother?
I think it was her brother.
Okay. And was there also a person there who was identified to you as a babysitter
Yes, sir.
and her daughter?
Yes, sir. She walked up behind me. As when I got there, walked around the front.
Okay. Anyone else there that you remember who was there on arrival?
No.
Okay. Now, how did your initial contact with the defendant play out in the driveway right inside the gate there?
When I got there, she was walking towards me. She got to me and I asked her, "What's going on?"
And what did she say?
She told me that the child was missing.
Did she say when she had become aware of that?
Earlier that morning, if I'm not mistaken, I think she said around 6, I think, or something like that. Earlier when she had got up.
Okay. When 6 was for when she got up or when the child might have gone missing? Do you remember?
I think she said when she woke up, she was looking at the child, shot one there.
Okay. And did she say anything to you about the door, the front door?
Yeah, so she said when she woke up, the door was open, the front door to the house,
And the child was gone?
and the child was gone.
Okay. While you were there talking to her about this, did she cast suspicion on anybody who might have been responsible for the disappearance of her child?
Yes, sir, she did. She said she thinks that her ex might have took the child. And if I'm not mistaken, I think she said that was the child's father, I think.
Okay. So she said the child's father might have taken it.
Yes, sir.
Now, as the senior man on scene, you were the senior man initially, right?
Yes, sir.
Once you've gotten this initial story, what do you then shift gears into doing?
Well, we shifted gears and I asked her what was the last place she saw him. And she told me in the bed there. And then the front door, we assumed about him going out the front door. If he went out the front door, then it could have been the front yard. And then there was woods behind the house. And there was the roadway of Buckhalter Road, which passed in front of the house and went south. So you could south of the house and then north of the house.
Did you task out some officers to search the house itself?
Yes, I did, sir. While I was talking to her, I asked her, did they search the house and look for him? She said yes. So I said, well, we're going to search it again. So I sent 2 officers in the house.
Do you remember which 2?
I think it was Gormley and I think Jefferson.
Okay. And did they go do that?
Yes, sir.
And what was, you mentioned Daniel Voss was one of the initial officers there with you. What was his role?
He was talking to the lady.
Okay. Did you, at any point, did you call other officers out beyond the initial 4, you, Gormley, Jepson, and Voss?
Yes, sir, I did.
And what did you want additional officers there for?
To aid in the search of the area. It was quite a big size area. And once they started arriving, I had officers check to the south of the residence, down to Veterans Parkway, and also had officers check to the north of the residence, up to Broad Avenue.
Now, you had officers canvassing the area looking for the boy himself, right?
Yes, sir.
And what else did you have them go out and look for?
I advised them to check the residence as they was checking the area, see if there was any cameras.
Okay, like Ring doorbell cameras and
Yes, sir.
things like that. So you had people out doing that.
Yes, sir.
And did you also have them canvassing for witnesses, potential people who might have seen the child either on his own or with somebody else?
Yes, we told them to knock on the doors and try to make contact with people that live there, see if they knew anything.
So the initial effort focuses on searching the house and searching the general area around the house, if I'm understanding it. Did you yourself personally search any particular area?
I did.
And can you tell us about that?
While I was standing just inside the gate, the backyard area, there was an open shed to the right. It had an RV. We walked over in that area, me and another officer, and checked it. And we left there and went. There was a shop directly behind the house. We checked that area, but it was locked up. We inquired about a key, but they said the gentleman who had the key to it wasn't there. So we searched around it, looked at behind the stuff that was there. Nothing.
Okay. So you weren't able to get into the RV initially because of lack of a key.
Correct.
Okay. Did the officers that showed up to help with the search efforts, where did they come from?
There was other officers that was assigned to my team that day.
Okay. The same beat 7 or different beats?
Oh, no, sir. They were from beat 8 and beat 9.
Okay. Those are other patrol areas in the West Chatham area?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you have other officers kind of flooding in from other places to help out?
Yes, sir. When you have a missing child, you call everybody over.
Okay. Now, at any point during your response, were you involved in making any follow-up on this claim by the defendant that perhaps the boy's father was responsible?
Yes, I did.
And can you tell us about that, please?
While I was myself and Officer Boss was there, I asked the lady if she knew where he lived.
You asked what lady?
The lady here with the black glasses.
Okay. You asked the defendant whether she knew where whom lived.
The ex.
Okay. The boy's father?
Yes, sir.
And what did she tell you?
She told me a county. I wrote it all down. She told me where he lived at. She gave me the county that he lived in. So what I did is I contacted that police department that's in that county.
And what did you ask them to do?
I advised them who I was looking for, gave them the name that I was looking for, and asked them did they know of them. And while I was talking to her, she told me she didn't know the address, but she gave me some reference points.
What do you mean by that?
Like she told me there was some reference points. There was a store. She told me the name of the store, and I think she said it was a little campground or something. But she told me the name of it, and it was a large sign there. So I gave that information to the officer who called me back from the county.
Okay.
He told me I think I know what it is.
All right. So you said she gave you some reference points of like businesses near
That's
where
correct.
the boy's father lived.
And Calamity Jane makes a nice comment here. No doubt this cop cried when he saw what happened to the lovely little one. He seems like he got a good heart, bless him. I was gonna say right before you, I was waiting for an appropriate point to pause this. This cop seems straight up good. He's just telling things as they happened as he saw them. I have my first impression is there is zero indication that he's trying to frame somebody up, trying to do something wrong, just trying to pad his testimony for the prosecution. I get none of that. This guy just seems to be, hey, this is what happened. I was here, I showed up, and this is what happened. So good on this cop. Great prosecutor, great cop so far. And Calamity Jane, great nickname. I'm a huge fan of Calamity Jane. Visited her grave in Deadwood, South Dakota. She's buried right next to Wild Bill Hickok. It's quite a cool thing.
Yes, sir.
Okay, to kind of walk you on to the general area.
That's correct.
Okay. And was there any result from that while you were out there?
The officer that called me and talked to me, he went out and searched.
I'm sorry, Sergeant, I'm going to instruct you not to tell the court anything that someone else said.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
Was calling that information out to the county in question, was that the end of your personal involvement in the follow-up on the suggestion that the boy's father might have had something to do with it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. At any point, did any of your superiors show up?
Yes, sir.
And who was the first one?
Lieutenant Foster.
And where is he in relation to you in the chain of command, the rank structure?
He's my lieutenant for that watch.
Okay. About how long did he get there after you arrived?
It was pretty quick because once I got the initial information about what was going on, the standard is you contact your lieutenant and advise him what you have.
Okay. And did he come out and become the senior man on scene after a little while?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did anybody else from the Chatham County Police Department command staff show up?
Yes, sir. There was the detective showed up. There was the assistant chief showed up. There was the detective, lieutenant, captains. They all showed up.
Okay. Do you remember who was first on scene for the detectives?
I think it was Detective Lemons. I think that was the first person I made contact with. Talked to.
Okay.
There was other detectives there.
Did Detective Wilkins come out?
Yes.
And what about Detective Noble?
Yes, he was there.
Okay. At any point, was there a response by a canine tracking team?
Yes, sir.
Can you tell us about that? Where were they from?
They was requested. There was a county to the south of Chatham County, and they came in. They called them in. I think it was around Reedsville.
And when they arrived, what did they do?
They came in. They was in the front yard, and they was talking to the lieutenant. And I guess after that, they went and did a search.
Now, you mentioned that detectives showed up after some time, right?
Yes, sir.
Now, once the detectives show up, who's in control of the scene?
The detectives.
Okay, so at that point, they took control and sort of relieved the patrol officers of command?
Yes, sir.
Okay. About how long were you at the scene total?
It was quite well. Probably, I would say probably about 2 hours.
Now, you mentioned that the defendant, her boyfriend, and her brother were present at the scene when you arrived, right?
That's correct, sir.
Now, at some point, were they transported to headquarters for questioning?
They were.
And were you involved in that in any way?
No, sir. A couple of my units were. They assisted the detectives.
Do you remember who that was?
No, I don't.
Now, after your involvement at the scene concluded, were you involved in any other organized searches for the missing child?
I did.
Can you tell us about that, please?
Once I left Buckholder Road, I was advised to go to the church. There's a church that's located on the corner of Garrard Avenue and Lewis Mills Boulevard.
And what was happening at the church?
At the church, they was having other resources come in to do the search. Other officers were coming in, and I think they had a civilian search team that came in.
Okay, what do you mean by other resources coming in to do the search?
When they have something, and when they have events when they have missing children, they are calling in other agencies and ask for assistance. Sheriff Department, and then you just have a lot of other people come in to help us aid with the search.
And when did that search take place? How long did it last?
It took place right after I left Buckholder. It came down. All the units started coming in, and I think we had a representative from SEMA that was there too.
SEMA being Chatham Emergency Management
Yes, sir.
Agency or Authority or something like that.
That's correct.
Okay. Roughly how many people were involved in this search that you're talking about that originated at the church?
I would say it was probably about 50 people there.
And what were y'all doing?
Well, once they got into the church, they briefed them on what was going on, and they briefed on the areas that they wanted to search.
Okay. And what happened after that?
And once that was over, they broke up in groups and they searched the area.
Everybody had a particular area that they were responsible
Yes,
for?
sir.
And how long were you doing that for?
I would say probably another hour and a half.
Okay. What time of day are we at this point, roughly?
It's getting dark. It's late afternoon.
Okay. And when had you initially arrived?
To the church?
To the residence in response to the initial call?
It was just a minute.
Sure.
9:42.
Now, were you wearing a body-worn camera that day?
Yes, sir.
Where was it located on your body?
Right in my chest.
And is that thing always running, or do you have to turn it on?
Yes, sir. It's on.
Okay.
We require once you get on a call, it has to be on before we get out of the vehicle.
Okay. So how do you turn it on before you get out of the vehicle?
There's a round button in the center. You tap it twice, and it activates it.
And did you do that upon arrival in this case?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And were your interactions with the defendant that you've described captured on body-worn camera?
Yes, sir.
And were the arrivals of some of these other officers captured on your body-worn camera as well?
Yes, sir.
Do you see in front of you an envelope marked as States Exhibit 2?
Yes, sir.
Do you recognize that?
Yes, sir.
How do you recognize it?
I signed it. I wrote my name and everything on front of it.
Okay. And that's an envelope, a sealed envelope?
Yes, sir. Sealed.
What's inside of there?
It feels like it's a memory stick.
Okay. Is it a flash drive containing your body-worn camera footage from that day?
That's what it feels like.
Okay. And you've reviewed that, right?
Yes, sir. I did.
Okay. And does it fairly and accurately depict your response to 535 Buckhalter in response to this missing child call?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, I'd offer this into evidence as State's Exhibit 2.
Minutes.
And
All
I'd
right.
Just publish a little bit from the beginning.
All right, we'll kind of scroll. We'll kind of fast forward. Oh, no signal detect. Let's fast forward to the next one. Testimony. All right, there we go. Oh, all right. Problems. We need to take a little break, which by virtue of this, we get to skip through. So
Now
sweet.
is
Take a quick little 5-minute break. Maybe.
plug back. Okay, so Mr. Hill, you're ready. Okay, let's bring the jury.
All right. Wait for the jury to come in.
And Mr. Dean, you may begin.
There we go.
I'm going to publish a portion of State's Exhibit 2 by playing from the very beginning of this video file, and I will state for the record when I stop the playback.
Okay. You know, you can take running for you off the board. You can log up yesterday.
I woke up about 7 o'clock and I was working about 6, so between 3 hour period. Somehow the front door is unlocked and my son is not in his sleeping.
So I've stopped the playback at 9:54:45 on the timestamp in the top right corner. Now, Sergeant Stewart, that timestamp in the top right corner of the frame, does that reflect the time of day it is?
Yes, sir.
And I asked you earlier about what time you responded, what time you got there, and I think you were testifying from memory at that point. But what does this video file reflect here in the top right corner is when you arrived and made contact with the defendant?
9:54 a.m.
9:54. Now, do you see in front of you a document marked as State's Exhibit 3?
Yes, sir.
And what is that?
It's a photograph of what you see when you first walk past the gate.
Just one or a whole stack of them?
There's a stack.
Now, are those still frames drawn from your body-worn camera footage from that day?
Yes, sir.
And do they fairly and accurately depict the events that they're concerned with?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, I'd offer this in State's Exhibit 3.
Oh, that's some potato cam shit going on there. That's, yeah. Let's was this filmed in like
Understand
2P?
the composite exhibit.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Admitted.
May I publish, Your Honor? And may I need to scroll through these and question the witness? Thank you. Now, Sergeant Stewart, mainly these images depict different people and when they arrived, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so let's just go through these in order. This first slide has 9:54 and 28 seconds in the top right corner. And we can see the defendant walking down the driveway towards you, correct?
Yes, sir.
So this is your initial arrival.
Yes, sir.
This next slide is shortly thereafter when she begins talking to you, correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, in this next slide, slide 3, who is the gentleman on the far left? And you can look up on the screen, I think. Might be easier for you.
You said it far left.
Far left of this image.
That's Corporal Jefferson.
Okay.
Your officer.
Moving on to the next slide. Who is that immediately to the right of Jepson that we see there with his hands on his body armor?
That looks like Officer Gormley.
Okay, so that would be Gormley.
Yes, sir.
And then to the right of Gormley, who is that with the notepad in his hand talking to the defendant?
Officer Voss.
Officer Voss. Okay. So these pictures that we've looked at, these all depict the people who were there initially, correct?
Yes, sir.
Moving on to slide 5. This is what time?
9:58:33.
So this is within just a few minutes of your arrival.
Yes, sir.
And who is the gentleman with no shirt there in the middle?
I think it's our brother.
Okay. And then the woman to the right in the image standing alongside the white vehicle, would that be the babysitter?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And it's difficult to make out in this picture, but is her daughter standing right on the other side of her?
Yes, sir.
Now, what time is this? This next slide?
10:08:58.
All right. So how long after your initial response would this be?
14 minutes.
Okay. And who's that in the middle? Is that Officer Voss still?
Facing away from me is Officer Boss.
Okay. And who is that looking towards you?
That is Officer Carson.
Carlson?
Yes, sir.
Now, had she arrived since the initial response?
Yes.
And what was her role there?
She was tasked to do a search.
Okay. So is she one of the officers you tasked out to look elsewhere?
That's correct, sir.
Now, who is this gentleman?
Lieutenant Foster.
And does this slide depict the approximate time of his arrival on scene?
Yes, sir.
And that is 11 minutes after 10?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that'd be about 15 minutes or so into your response.
Yes, sir.
In this next slide, is that Corporal Jepson on the left there?
Yes, sir.
Not the far left, but the person that we see right there.
Corporal Jepson.
And who's that in the middle?
Officer Zerke.
Zerke?
Yes, sir.
And where did she come from?
From Beat 8,
And what
Georgetown
was-
area.
Say again?
Beat 8, Georgetown area.
And what was her role when she arrived at the scene?
She was tasked to search the area.
The next slide, we're at 16 minutes after 10. Who is this here?
It looks like Officer Norano.
Naranjo?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And where did he come from?
He came from, I think, Beat 9
Okay. And what was his role?
to search the area.
Now, in this next slide on the far left, is that Lieutenant Foster?
Yes, sir.
And who are those other two police officers?
That is Corporal Eames, the one facing me. And I think that is his trainee.
Okay. What was his name?
I think it's Laurel Stewart, I think.
Okay. And did they show up to search as well?
Yes, sir.
Moving on to the next slide, this is at 10:22, correct?
Yes, sir.
So this would be just under half an hour into your response.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Who is this that we're looking at here?
It is Latoya Brown. Miss
Say
Brown.
again?
Miss Brown.
Okay. Latoya Brown?
Yes,
did you
sir.
say? Okay. And what is her role with the Chatham County Police Department?
She's a CRO.
What is a CRO?
She goes around and takes non-emergency calls.
She goes around.
Makes reports when people want to report this, whereas it doesn't require police officers to go out and take like a theft or something like that.
Okay.
She goes out and take a.
Community resource officer, CRO.
Okay.
And what was her role at the scene?
She was requested there to come in to keep up with the notes. Yes, right.
Okay. A scribe?
Yes, sir.
What
That's
is
what was told to me, scribe.
Okay.
But to me, she was just there to take notes.
Okay. Notes on what?
What was going on? Who came in? What was said?
Okay. Now, the next slide, we're at 10:44, right?
Yes, sir.
So that would be about 50 minutes after you've gotten there yourself, right?
Yes, sir.
And is that Lieutenant Foster in the middle?
Okay, and a lot of this guy's testimony is going to be the who was where doing what when, laying the foundation for all of the testimony we're going to hear later.
You don't know off the top of your head?
No, man.
What is happening between the two of them?
I think the lieutenant's explaining to him about the incident that's going on right there.
Okay. Explaining what about it?
Just telling
What
them what-
information you'll have to this
what-
point?
Yeah, so what information he has. I briefed him when he got there, what I had found out,
You briefed who?
the lieutenant.
Okay.
And then that's probably what the lieutenant's briefing him about what we found out.
Okay. So you would brief Lieutenant Foster when he shows up, and then Lieutenant Foster briefs the detectives?
Yes, sir.
And
In
from
the
his
next
watch
slide,
band, you can tell he is wearing
who
a
is that
tactical
in the
G-Shock
fancy
watch.
blue shirt arriving at the scene?
A detective. And I think that's detective. I think it's Noble. I think that's his name, Noble.
Okay. So that's Noble. In the next slide, who is this?
Lieutenant Thompson,
In the next slide, whose face are we looking at there?
Assistant Chief Shoop.
And who is this in the next slide?
That is she's the lady that does out the news releases and media releases.
The public information officer?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And what was she there for?
To cover the event. It was a missing child.
Were there news media present at this time?
Not that I know of. I hadn't seen any.
Did they ever show up to this scene that day?
They did.
That's why she was there to deal with them?
She would be the one dealing with the media. Yes, sir.
Now, in this next slide, the time is 11:51, correct?
Yes, sir.
So this would be almost 2 hours into the police response to this scene.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, who is that gentleman that we see there?
It's a Marine Patrol officer.
say Marine Patrol Officer?
Yes, sir.
What do they do?
They wrap the waterways around Chatham County.
Okay. Is he with the Chatham County Police Department or some other agency?
Yes, sir. He's with the police department.
Okay, Chatham County PD?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and Jack asked a good question here. Sorry. Why so many questions about what other officers arrived and when? Because they need to establish who was on the scene and what they were doing. It's just purely for foundational purposes so that they don't have to go back later and they go through all this. Okay, where were you? You know, what you know, show us how we can rely on the evidence that you were there. So he's just laying the foundation for who was attending, who was on scene, what they were doing, who they were talking to, etc. It's purely a foundational thing at this point.
Specifically the Marine Patrol?
Yes, sir.
And why was he there?
He came out, and like I said earlier, when we have a missing child, all resources in the department, if they can spare them, they send them.
In the next slide, who are we seeing here with the sport coat and striped shirt on?
Lieutenant Cheney, I'm sorry.
And what unit was he with at the time?
The detectives.
Okay, so he was a lieutenant with the detectives?
Yes, sir.
In this next slide, it's noon now, right? 12 o'clock?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we're a little more than 2 hours in.
Yes, sir.
And who is that walking across the yard there?
That looks like Sergeant Coleman.
And what unit is Sergeant Coleman with?
Forensics.
Okay, so by this time, forensics is on the scene.
Yes, sir.
In the next slide, 12:05, who is this that you're interacting with?
Assistant Chief Paul Birch.
And in
Looks
the
like
next
she's
slide,
looking for Carmen
you see a
Sandiego.
number of police officers in the blue shirt of the Chatham County Police Department.
Yes, sir.
Who are these other people in the olive drab and tan uniforms?
I think those are the people dealing with the K9, the search dogs.
Okay. And does this depict their arrival at the scene?
Yes, sir.
Now I'll move past this slide and move to the next one.
While he's moving on to the next slide, Good Kimmy has just become a member of the Clean and Sober crew. Thank you so much, Good Kimmy. Glad to have you here. Thank you.
Okay. And they're in the driveway of the house next door, correct?
Yes, sir.
Talking over the investigation.
That's correct.
Now, the gentleman in the foreground of this photo closest to us, is that Lieutenant Cheney of the Criminal Investigations Division who you talked about earlier?
Yeah,
I'm talking about closest to us.
He had a great suit.
No, closest to us.
The guy facing us?
The big guy in
His
the
badge
middle.
was.
Oh, that's not. Yes, sir. That's Lieutenant Cheney.
So that's Lieutenant Cheney. And who is that in the gray suit in the middle?
That is Chief Hadley.
The Chief of Police for the Chatham County Police
Yes, sir.
Department. Who is that in the green shirt?
That is Captain Wright with the detectives unit.
Now, is it normal for multiple lieutenants, captain, in two assistant chiefs and the chief of police himself to show up to a call?
They show up on calls. How would you say? High profile calls like murders, stuff like that. Missing children and stuff like that. When we do a lot of searching and calling in a lot of resources, they come out to.
So they come when it's important.
Yeah, the chief needs some face time for the important cases.
Now, this next
Understandable.
slide, what time are we at now here?
12:31.
And who is that we see in this slide?
I think it's Detective Lemons.
All right. And what is happening at this time?
This is the front door of the house. The door that they said it was open.
And what's going on?
I'm explaining to her from where I am what they told me. And
Due to popular
show her
demand,
area.
I have turned my microphone
She's
down
taking a
to
look at
about
the room.
30%.
And then finally, in the last slide here, what time are we at here?
12:43.
All right, so this would be almost 3 hours after your original arrival.
Yes, sir.
You got there at 9:54, 12:43, almost 3 hours.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And what are we seeing here? What is happening here?
That is Lieutenant Foster, Detective Lemon, Captain Wright, and that is Captain Vandrich. Let's see the other person.
And that's Detective Lemons on the far right.
Yes, sir.
And what is she doing?
I guess they all breaking about the case. They're talking to each other about the case.
Okay. Talking about the plan to take
Yes, sir.
everybody to headquarters and conduct formal interviews.
I think that's what they were doing.
Let me ask you a little bit about the defendant's Demeanor. Okay, I want to go back to when you first got there.
Yes, sir.
All right. Have you responded to missing children calls before?
Yes, sir.
About how many do you think you've responded to, if you had to estimate?
You want a number? I can't tell you a
Rough
number.
estimate.
It's been quite a few, sir. Quite a few.
More than 10, less than 10?
Or more than 10.
Okay. And have you had the opportunity to observe the demeanor of parents calling in that their child is missing and reaching out to the police for help?
Yes, sir.
What is it normally like?
Most of the time when we get to a residence where a child is missing, mother's upset. She's hysterical. She's crying. She's telling us, what are you standing here for? Talking to me? You should be out looking for my child. You're wasting time.
Oh,
Just-
that's some evil shit.
It's so hysterical. A lot of times you can't talk to them.
Was the defendant like that in this case?
No, sir.
Did you view her demeanor as consistent with that of other parents that you've spoken to in missing children cases?
No, sir, I did.
Let me go back to the first slide. I guess it's actually the second slide. Do you see this here?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, does it look to you like the defendant is crying?
Looked like she's trying to cry.
Is that what it looked like to you that day at the time that she was trying to cry?
Yes, sir.
Did it appear to you that she was actually crying or no?
I mean, there's some, you can see there was some water on her face, but it wasn't like I told you. She wasn't hysterical. She wasn't crying, just crying out. Well, you saw big tears coming out of her.
One moment, please. No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, in just a moment, Sergeant. Mr. Hilliard may have some questions for you.
Yes, ma'am.
Sergeant Stewart, correct?
Yes, sir.
Sergeant Stewart, you were one of the first ones to respond on the scene that day, correct?
Yes, sir. One of them.
All right. And I'm curious, you said you have 35 years worth of experience in law enforcement, correct?
Yes, sir.
So in your 35 years of experience in law enforcement and you arrive on the scene of a crime, what's one of the first things you've been trained to do?
Go up and make contact with the complainant.
Okay. And then what next?
Talk to him, find out what's going on.
Okay. And then what next?
If I need to call in other resources, I do.
Okay. Now, in a case like this, where there may have been an abduction that took place or transpired, especially from inside the home, would you secure the scene?
Yes, sir. That's what we had other officers to do that.
Well, we'll get back to that in a minute. So you had officers do that. Which officers were doing that exactly?
Let's see. Right out there. I had quite a few officers out there that day, sir. I know Jefferson was there after they had searched the house. He came down. And Gormley, he came down.
Okay.
And for you talking about securing the scene of the house?
Yeah. So isn't it normal and routine that you secure the scene where there may be some forensic evidence for you to seize or look at?
That's correct.
Okay. And wouldn't securing that scene mean you prevent people from going in or out?
That's correct.
Okay. Wouldn't it also mean that when you send techs in to go ahead and secure or look or search or do something like that, they would actually be wearing gloves or have some sort of bodysuit on so they would not contaminate the scene?
Yes, sir. You talking about the officers that went in?
Talking about all of the officers that were out there. It seemed like you had an ungodly amount of people out there that day.
That's correct.
Okay. You still have state's exhibit in front of you?
Okay, so the prosecutor has, the defense lawyer has taken the snark approach. I see. You had an ungodly number of officers responding to a missing child report. I'm sorry. If there is a missing child, I would want an ungodly number of officers present, including the chief. I would want everybody there. If there wasn't an ungodly number of people there, one, it would show we don't give a shit about missing children. And two, it would give somebody something to complain about. He would have complained and been snarky if there wasn't an ungodly number of people there. He's taken the snark approach. Bad look. I don't think it's going to sit well with the jurors, which I would assume include a number of mothers or fathers who would be thinking, where is the ungodly number of officers when my child goes missing? So again, we opined on this earlier. Jen, I believe it's a public defender. I don't think she could afford a private lawyer, but I would assume he's a public defender. It's just my assumption. I don't know, but yeah. Taking the snark approach, not particularly effective, I would guess, in this type of a situation. Yes, he called it a high priority missing child case. So yeah, I don't think this is a great approach to take, defense.
Six Exhibit 3.
Oh, KL Burke says he is a private lawyer. I'm surprised by that. But okay. All right. Fair enough. He does have a bow tie budget, though. Not only, well, this isn't the bow tie guy, but the other guy. So, all right. So now I know the answer to that question. Apparently, he is a private attorney. So, all right. I don't like his approach, though. I don't think the jury's going to appreciate it in a case like this. Wait, what? He has a website and a 1-star rating. Oh.
Oh, okay, I get it.
You got 27 pictures here in front of you that Mr. Dean just meticulously went over with, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, let's start with number one. Number one is the first one, 954, right? This was literally as you drove up on the scene, wasn't it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Was your body camera operating at that point in time?
It was.
Okay. And this is a still of that, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, wouldn't the best evidence of that interaction, rather than your conclusion, be the actual video of that?
I don't understand what you're saying.
Okay. So you arrive on the scene at 9:54 that morning, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You have an interaction. This is what we're looking at in this particular photograph, right?
Correct.
Okay. Now, rather than your conclusion being what they put in front of this jury, wouldn't the actual video from that body-worn camera be a better indicator of what actually transpires?
Of what I saw.
Right. That's not what Mr. Dean offered, was it? He offered your conclusion, correct?
He asked me what I thought.
Right. So let's go to the next one. Picture number.
Okay, I don't like this guy. I do not like the defense lawyer, which is rare for me. I usually give the defense lawyers much more leeway than I give prosecutors, because prosecutors have to be held to a very exacting standard of proof and evidence production. But just saying, well, wouldn't the actual video be better than your testimony? Hey, he's just answering the questions that were asked of him. He was shown some pictures and asked what was going on. It's not his position to say, hey, I don't know, my opinion doesn't really matter. You should really look at the video. That's not this officer's, that's not this witness's job. So, this guy has to be alienating jurors, and he cannot afford to alienate jurors. He needs to get those jurors in his back pocket. He needs to get sympathy for his client. And questions like this do nothing to forward or progress that task.
Number two, same thing. Rather than the actual evidence, he offered your conclusion, correct? Objection. Argument.
Sustained.
Let's talk about number two. That's actually part of the video as well, is it not, Sergeant?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did Mr. Dean offer your actual video of that interaction? No, he didn't. Did he?
Objection. I would ask that the witness be allowed to testify.
Well, he has to actually testify, Judge. I asked a question and it hung out there. He looked confused, so I'll withdraw it and rephrase it.
Okay.
Exactly.
Sergeant Stewart.
He has to be allowed to testify. He has to be allowed to answer the question, and he's doing an admirable job.
These are stills lifted from your body-worn camera from that day, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You reviewed the body-worn camera, right?
Yes, sir.
It's good video footage, right?
That's correct.
That's the best evidence of what actually transpired that day, was it not?
Yes, sir.
I don't think it's argumentative.
You do have him on cross-examination. However, I think the point is you are asking the sergeant questions about technically best evidence.
I'll rephrase it, Judge.
Yep.
What actually transpired?
He's asking the judge he's asking the witness about the best evidence. It's not the witness's position to determine what the best evidence is. It's the witness's duty to answer the questions that are asked of him. Not to question the prosecution strategy, not to question the evidence that's presented, not to make a determination of what is better evidence to be presented. That is not this witness's job.
Transpired was recorded on your video, correct, Sergeant?
That's correct.
Okay. Mr. Dean asked you to state your conclusion about that, correct?
He asked me to think about this.
Right. So,
Right.
Play the video, did he?
No.
Okay. Now, let's move on. Look at picture 4. These 3 particular officers, were these officers there to search?
Yes, sir, they were.
Did they search?
They searched the house.
They went in the house, and I'm just curious, was that before or after this picture?
After.
Okay. Did they don any particular gloves or clothing or anything to protect the scene, or they just go in and search?
I couldn't tell you, sir, because I was standing here. I was not around the back door. They went in the house.
Well, but you know what you saw. Did you see them do that?
Here, no. When they went out of my sight, I don't know what they did.
Well, okay, well, let's parse this out a little bit then. Did you see them go to, say, I don't know, back of their car?
Straighten your tie, dude.
Most officers carry gloves on there.
Yeah. Did you see them carrying gloves?
I can't tell you what was in their pocket.
Well, all right. Did you see them put on any gloves?
I did not.
Did you see them come out and pull any gloves off?
I did not.
So you didn't see him grab any, didn't see him put any on, didn't see him pulling off, but you can't state conclusively that they didn't put any on.
I cannot tell you that.
Okay. Let's look at number 5. These particular 2 officers here, did you see them do that?
You're going to do each exhibit from state's exhibit 3. Do you mean for the photo to correspond on the screen?
Judge, I assume because they've already been tendered, the jury's going to have these.
They're going to have them.
So I really don't care whether they see it right now or not. But. So Sergeant Stewart,
Yes, sir.
these particular 2 officers, which 2 officers are these again?
Officer Voss and Corporal Jepson.
Same question to them. Did you watch them search?
Officer Voss, no. He stood there and talked to the complainant.
And how about the other officer?
Corporal Jepson? No, sir. I did not see him search inside the house.
So neither one of them went inside the house.
Corporal Jepson did.
Did he put on gloves when he went in?
I can't tell you that, sir.
And let's go to picture 7. This is, I think it's one of the lieutenants, if I'm not mistaken. Is that Lieutenant Foster?
Yes, sir.
Did he help in the search?
No, sir.
Okay. He stayed outside the whole time.
Yes, sir. As far as I know.
Okay. How about picture 8? These 2 officers. I think one of them Jepson. I don't know who the other one is.
Corporal Jepson and Officer Zerke.
Zerke. Did Zerke help in the search?
Outside of the house.
She searched outside.
Yes, sir.
All right. And let's go look at picture number 9. That officer, which officer was that?
Officer Norano.
Okay. And same question for him. Did he help in the search?
He was outside.
Outside?
Yes, sir.
And when you say outside, we're talking about out in the pool area, the RV, all of that area, correct?
Outside of the house.
Not inside the house.
No, sir. I never saw him inside the house. Never told him to go in there.
Now, and I'm curious, you said it's Miss Brown. She's a CRO, correct?
Yes, sir.
She arrived at 10:22, which is about 30 minutes after you arrived, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
A little bit more than 30 minutes.
Okay. Well, that's fine.
Yeah, right about 30 minutes. Yes, sir.
35, 40 minutes. Doesn't really matter. Does she normally come out and start taking notes for people?
No, she was requested to come out.
Who requested her? Just out of curiosity.
My lieutenant.
The lieutenant requested the note taking. Okay. Now, so then the next picture is picture 12. It has a detective in it. Did the detective help search?
Not that I know of.
Okay. And picture 13, it looks like it's another detective, Noble, if I'm not mistaken. But is that Detective Noble?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did he help search?
No, sir.
Okay. What did he do then?
As far as I know, when he walked up, they was all talking, doing their detective stuff.
Now, and picture 14, I know I should know this officer. Which officer is that?
Thompson.
Thompson. And what was his duty?
He just came out to assist the lieutenant.
If you had to guess that day, how many people were out there from the time you got there at 9:45 or so till 12:45?
Quite a few people, sir.
A large number of people.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, did you say it's an unusually large number of people?
No.
Okay. You said you've been doing this for 35 years. Look at picture 16.
Yes, sir.
Who made the determination to call out the public information officer?
I can't tell you that, sir. I don't know. I didn't request her.
It wasn't you.
It wasn't me.
Is that something you would normally do?
No, sir.
Okay. And with regards to the rest of these pictures, over the course of the 3 hours you were there, is it safe to say that more and more and more and more people showed up?
That's correct, sir.
Okay. And where did they focus their search at when they got there?
I don't know where they focused their search. I can tell you where I focused.
So where did you focus your search?
My search was the wooded area behind the house, the roadway south of the residence, and the roadway north of the residence. All the houses around that area.
Okay. Now, at what time did the media show up?
Don't know, sir. I didn't see the media.
How long were you there that day?
I was there for quite a while.
It's safe to say 6, 8, 9 hours easily.
At that house, I know it was more than 3 hours.
So you were at the house more than 3 hours.
Yes, sir.
Okay. You didn't call the media, did you?
No, sir, I didn't.
Okay. And that would not be something you would normally do either, would it?
No, sir.
Now, who was it that called the canine search dogs?
That was something that Lieutenant did. Lieutenant Foster.
How many, I'm just curious, Mr. Dean, how many missing child calls have you ever responded to?
Quite a few, sir, over the time.
10, 20,
I know it's been more than 10.
more than 10?
Yes, sir, it's been more than 10.
Less than 20?
I would think it's been more than 20.
Been more than 20?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And have you had any specialized training in that area or no?
Search and retrieval. Of what area are you talking about?
I would say missing children's investigations.
We've got classes on it.
A class on
Some
it?
classes, yes, sir.
Some classes on it? Okay. And how long ago was that?
We haven't had anything recent. It's been a while.
10 years?
I think it's less than that.
5 years?
I've said
7
less.
years?
I've said 5.
All right. Now let's talk about when you originally got there. The people that were on scene when you got there was Daniel Youngkin, Paul Simon, Miss McCarta, and her daughter, correct? 4 adults.
Babysitter.
Excuse me?
The name you called last. Is that the babysitter?
The babysitter and her daughter.
Yes, sir.
So it's 4 adults that you saw when you got there.
Yes, I think it was 4.
And I have a question for you. What was the first question you asked when you got there?
I asked her what was going on. What was happening? What's going on?
Right. And what were you told?
She told me her child was missing.
Okay. And now you made a distinction here, so I'm going to ask a very specific question. Did you ask if she had an idea of who may have taken the child, or if she had an idea of any suspects?
Well, she kept saying someone took my child. So do you have an idea who?
Right. So you asked that question, which is a normal question, right?
Yes, yes.
That's a normal question, right?
Yes,
and she responded to that question, correct? So nothing unusual about that. That's a normal question you'd ask.
Yes, sir.
Did Mr. Youngkin say anything to you?
He was saying something.
Objection.
I'm not asking what he said. I'm just asking if he said something to him. That's all.
You may proceed.
Right.
He was saying something.
Right. So Mr. Youngkin, you talked to him as well.
He was standing there when I was talking to the lady.
Right. So you were interacting with Mr. Youngkin, Ms. McCarter, her daughter, and Miss Simon all at the same time. And they were all standing right there in front of each other. Correct?
The babysitter wasn't. I don't think she was there when I was talking to the lady.
So you pulled him to the side?
No, it's just when I first walked in, I saw her boyfriend, and their little child.
Okay. So that picture, I guess, this right here is what you're describing, with the exception of you can't see the child, right?
Correct.
Correct. Okay. So, and was it a few minutes later when it was the babysitter and the daughter and them as well? Correct.
That's correct. And Officer Voss was talking to him. I wasn't talking to him. I was standing back.
Okay. Did you write a report in this case, Sergeant Stewart?
Yes, sir.
And if I were to go back and review that report, would that report pretty much contain everything that you have listed right here and everything you testified to here today?
Pretty much.
That's all the questions we'll have with this witness, right?
All right, thank you, Mr. Dean. Any follow-up? All right, thank you. Sergeant,
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
is there any reason the sergeant should not be excused?
No, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, people, that's where we're going to wrap this up today. Looks like there's about 2 more hours to go of testimony time. They take a bit of a break and a couple more witnesses to get through. So what we're going to do is, again, we are following this trial until the Sarah Boone trial starts streaming, which I believe will probably be on Wednesday. Tomorrow's Wednesday, so probably on Thursday or Friday. So until Sarah Boone starts, we're going to be following this case closely, watching us, trying to catch up, get up to speed. And then when Sarah Boone starts streaming, we will go to Sarah Boone for what is expected to be a 2 to 3 week trial. And once Sarah Boone is finished, we will come back to this trial and we'll pick up wherever it is that we leave off, and we'll watch this trial all the way through. I don't know how long this trial is expected to go, but I've wanted to cover this, and it's just unfortunate that they happen to be at the exact same time. So until, again, just to repeat myself, which I do quite a bit. We'll watch this until Sarah starts streaming. Then we'll stream the entire Sarah Boone trial. And once we're done with that, we will come back here and finish up this trial, because they're both very important trials and we need to cover them both. Excuse me just one second. So we will be back. I expect to be doing this again tomorrow, but if Sarah starts, we will do Sarah Boone. If Sarah Boone is still in witness selection, which I believe they're going to be, then we will go back to this. Now, as far as the Sarah Boone trial is concerned, what I understand from Jules and other people that were in court, they went through about 100 jurors yesterday. And they got 13. They're calling in another group of 50 witnesses, 50 potential jurors today. They'll whittle it down some more. And then once they do that, they'll seat the remaining jurors, which could take another 2 days, I would guess. So let's see where we can send you here at the end of this. Don't leave just yet, people. We got a couple of more things to discuss before we send you off into the great beyond. I'm just looking to see who we can redirect you to once I wrap this up. Let's see. Looks like looks like we will send you over to, unless, excuse me one second. Yep. All right. It looks like we will send you on over to Kat Not Williams, she is covering like day 43 million of the YSL trial, whatever day that is. I believe it's day 144. She's covering. There's always something interesting happening in the YSL Young Thug trial. So we'll send you over there to her. Right. So Strawberry is sleeping peacefully. And over here we have Yoda, who is just out of it. As always, Yoda has hoarded the bones and the ball for toys. This is a rough trial, and I understand it's not our normal trial where we get to make funny, witty, snarky comments, because this whole thing is horrific. But so far, what we saw was a very, very powerful opening by the prosecution. The prosecution's opening has been quite persuasive, I think. The defense opening was a modified version of the keep an open mind. His was that they haven't done their job. The prosecution will not be able to prove their case. It's all innuendo, supposition, etc. I like the way the prosecution handled this witness. I like this witness's answers. Straightforward, doesn't seem to be hiding anything, is answering things calmly, collectedly, and in a very professional manner. The defense lawyer, I do not like this defense lawyer style at all. Not a bit. He's being, for lack of a better word, needlessly dickish. He's being snarky, he's being rude. If you ever wasn't there an unnecessary number of police officers? This is a missing 20-month-old child. If it was my missing 20-month-old child, I would want every single law enforcement officer available at all levels, state and federal, to be at my damn house listening to me and trying to find my child. So this whole idea, wasn't there too many cops? This is a nonsense argument. It's stupid. And I think he alienated a lot of juror members. Unsuccessfully animating. That's a funny Sarah Boone reference, which I was going to mention. Dinner and a movie with Santino. Dominique said, I don't think anyone in the jury is being successfully animated by this cross-examination. Exactly. I think they're being turned off by it. I would be. If I was a parent, I would be. What are you saying, that there shouldn't be a lot of officers searching for a missing 20-month-old child? Is that what you're saying? Oh, and the fact they didn't roll up wearing their gloves, we should somehow criticize the number of officers there. I think he was completely unsuccessful. And in fact, I would go so far as saying, as a father, my impression is his strategy backfired. If I was a juror, his strategy would have backfired completely with me, and I would be pissed at him for suggesting that any 20-month-old child is not worth the absolute utmost attention from all people, and criticizing them for bringing a public relations person in. That is what you do. We'll get that in just a second. That is what you do. You call in the public. You call in the public relations people, because the news is going to be there. The news is going to be covering a missing 20-month child, and they're going to be wanting statements from the police. So it would be stupid if the police didn't bring in a public relations spokesman to talk about this case. So I think it was a horrible cross-examination, ineffective, and possibly very, very counterproductive. Totally Not a Russian Bot says, maybe Jeff can explain the Chewbacca defense, because that's rough to do in chat. I would just suggest you Google South Park Chewbacca defense. It's just the whole idea. None of this makes sense. It's quite a humorous thing, the Chewbacca defense, but basically, yeah. And KL Burke, the final super chatter of the day. Island informed me that the lawyer I Googled and said is private is actually the bow tie guy. The last fool, I don't know. Unacceptable. I'll show myself out. If they're probably from the same firm, and if one is private, the other's private too, because you wouldn't have a public defender and a private lawyer representing someone. In fact, that was the reason the first lawyer backed out of the Sarah Boone case. In the very, very first hearing, she had hired a private lawyer, and also a public defender had been appointed to represent her. And it was a who's going to handle this? Is it going to be the public defender, or is it going to be the private lawyer? And the private lawyer said, to tell you what, we'll let the public defender's office handle this case. And the original Sarah Boone lawyer bowed out. So yeah, if bow tie guy is private, then the other guy's private too. And there would be no reason they wouldn't work for the same firm. And unless there's something that says they're not working for the same firm, I'm just assuming they're working for the same firm. I'll check them out and see what we can find out about them. But that chat is where we're going to wrap this up for today. And like I said, if Sarah goes live streaming tomorrow, we'll do Sarah. If not, we'll be back here for the continuation of day 1 and day 2 of this LEILANI Simon trial. This is a rough one to get through, chat, and I appreciate you bearing with me here. We're wrapping up with 570. Oh, we've just lost 130, down to 440 people. 598 likes, 2 more likes. Somebody just hit the like button, get us up to 600 likes. I would appreciate that. And we've picked up a few new subscribers today, so thank you very much to the new subscribers. We're approaching the 81,100 mark. We currently have 81,036 subscribers. Thank you so much. We picked up about 11 subscribers today. That's super cool. Let's get us there. Chat, you're awesome. You are the best chat on the entire, well, not just on the entire internet, just in the entire universe, in the entire known universe. You're the best chat. The Vice Squad chat rules. Mods, thank you so much for being here, doing your moddy best as always. And thank you to all of the support that was shown through super chats. Thank you very much for that. The gifted memberships, the purchased memberships, and thank you to the chat that is just talking amongst yourselves, keeping each other entertained, having good camaraderie with each other. The one thing I do love, and I will say this about you chat people, I love that you don't have to be overly modded. We tend to walk close to the line of decency. Sometimes we put a toe or two over, but I love that this is self-moderated chat. You're all adults. You know what's acceptable and what's not. You know what's appropriate and what's not. I don't have to constantly be worried about what's going on in chat, because you take care of yourselves. Thank you so much for that. And we reached the 3rd tier. As the final thing today, we will take the 3rd tier reward / I guess it's not really a punishment because I enjoy it. The 3rd tier is the shot of just neat straight absinthe. Normally you would have absinthe with sugar, ice, and water, but we do it neat. And this is real absinthe. This is the real deal. This is not just flavored vodka. This is distilled Grand Wormwood, the Artemis Absinthium. This is the real deal. So thank you very much for getting us to the third tier. I don't know what the fourth tier is. We've only gotten there a couple of times, but cheers. Thank you so much for getting it, for all the support. Chat, you guys are awesome. We'll end this here. Cheers. And we will see you tomorrow, either this or Sarah Boone, depending. Right now, we're going to send you to Kat Knott Williams, who's covering the YSL trial. Make sure you tell Kat Williams hi from Legal Vices. And thank you for bearing with this case, this horrific, horrific case of this evil, evil situation surrounding the death of 20-month-old Quentin Simon. We'll see you tomorrow, chat. Love you guys. Take care and say hi to Kat from me. Bye, everybody.